Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Grimerica.
At an initial stage, beyond that, it's a proprietary algorithm of my own design that delivers the serendipitous aspect of it. Now, the deterministic aspect, any computer programmer could duplicate.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. We are going to be chatting with Clif High a little bit later. I really enjoyed it. It's one of the funner ones in a while. But first, as always, Graham Ball Hockey Dunlop. How's it going, buddy?
Not bad.
So you're
pretty good.
Driving across the country.
No, I'm
to
just
play
driving
a couple
to the
games
coast.
of ball hockey.
Yeah.
How long's the drive?
9 hours?
At the speed limit?
No. Well, I don't know. 10 hours at the speed limit, maybe?
I thought it was more like 12.
Actually, I have to fix my radar detector. It's not working. My fuse, I think there's a fuse gone.
So how much did it cost you to re-register your car this year?
Just to change my address, it cost me $330.
Yeah. I remember one time I went in to fucking renew my license. It was $970. I couldn't even do it. I just had to walk out of there.
Just turn around and head down.
Like, oh, well, I think you obviously first you get mad. You go through the steps. Denial. No, what?
No, that's wrong. That's not me. That's not me.
Anger. And then finally you got to go and wait till payday.
She gave me a number to call because one of the tickets I don't remember getting. I didn't get it in the mail. It was after the one that I got with you in the car.
I find it hard to believe that you're innocent.
Well, me too, but I need to remember what it was, what ticket it was.
Is that like just a personal thing?
Yeah, I mean, just in case. What if they throw fucking extra tickets at people?
I don't think that happens. I'd like to hear from one person out there that has ever got a ticket that they
weren't supposed to get.
Just a random surprise. Gotcha.
So yeah, driving to Richmond on the coast, play a little ball hockey in a tournament.
Richmond, BC?
Yeah.
That's like right on the border?
Well, no, not really. No, it's close to the border, but it's not on the border. It's right next to Vancouver. It's pretty much. I'll be staying in Vancouver and in New West.
At your mom's?
Yeah, and my sister's probably. It'll be fun. I'll be playing 4 games or something maybe with a bunch of old buddies that I used to hang out with.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe Graham won't be back.
Graham might not come back.
Justin. Graham's on a runaway.
Oh yeah, I'll be fine. That'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. We'll see what kind of shape you're in when we get back. I predict you're going to come back with some sort of injury.
Well, I'm already nursing one right now, trying to get over it.
Yeah, you're going to come back in a sling or a
You
crutch.
think so? Thanks, buddy.
You and Sal are going to be
Thanks.
hobbling around the office together.
Thanks. So yeah, this episode was really fun with Cliff. We talked about all kinds of predictions and stuff, and yeah, weather, gold, silver,
linguistics,
using
linguistics
Bitcoin,
to predict the future,
central banks. Yeah, it was really interesting. He was a great.
Oh
great
fuck!
sport.
Someone sent us some Bitcoins, and I can't fucking remember. I can't find the message thread. I can't remember who it was.
How did they send it?
I think I gave them, instead of giving them our Bitcoin address, I think I gave them the Bitcoin from the last person I had sent Bitcoins to.
Oh, wow, nice.
Which was someone on Fiverr. So I think that might have went to some random person, $100. I don't know, unless there's some...
$100?
Yeah, I think it was about $100.
Good job, buddy.
Yeah. So, or if you're that guy on Fiverr, because
here's the thing: cashed in?
If he can figure it out and get back to me and let me know, I can probably, because I know I'll have the history of my Fiverr account of who I paid with those Bitcoins. So I'll be able to say, hey, I sent you blah blah blah, and if nothing else, we can probably have $100.
20 more jingles.
$100 worth of jingle credit. Nah, $5 is usually just entry level. By the time you finish a jingle, you're at, 25, 30, sometimes $40. The Grimerica home videos one was like $40.
Oh, yeah.
I had to get a couple songs made.
And you had to write it. That doesn't include you writing it yourself.
Yeah, to create my creative
juices.
Yeah, you should do one.
No.
Oh,
I got enough to do. I can't. I'm behind on everything else I got to do.
I got enough to do.
I do. What do you think? I do nothing for the show?
No, I know you do a lot. You pull up almost half. So what do you got, buddy? It seems like it's been a while since we've done a regular intro.
It has.
We did?
Yeah.
Because what do we had? E-Frame last week.
Oh yeah, right.
And then the week before we did in the car.
Well, I could just read a couple letters that we got. Physical letters at our P.O. box.
Speeding down the fucking.
We got a couple letters from some listeners and a couple books actually. This one is Dear Darren and Graham. Please accept this copy of Blood Republic. In thanks of the assistance you provided during its writing. Some of the themes and ideas presented in the novel were actually solidified while listening to the Grimerica show. With this story, I'm hoping to raise people's awareness to the dangers of partisan political thinking, even as they are being entertained. The book is about an election conspiracy pushing America into the Second World Civil War. Hopefully, if I can get the word out for people to read it, the fictional horrors within it won't come true. I hope you find it enjoyable and thought-provoking. Please never stop fighting for truth in this crazy. And thanks for helping write the book. That's from Jim Duncan. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a thick novel. I think you don't you want to read a novel?
Yeah, I've been looking for a novel.
There you go, buddy. And you want to get more into politics, so there you go.
I want to get more into politics.
Yeah.
Do I?
Yeah. I got a handwritten note here from...
Handwritten note?
Yeah, the Baron of America's Mountain.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's,
What's America's
Baron
Mountain?
Lemessiny. I don't know, it's got to be a mountain back east or something.
Back east? Why do you say back east?
What do you mean?
In America, though?
West,
back east in America?
Yeah. So Graham and Darren.
Why is it back east?
That's what we say.
Those people that have never been east?
The people from east, like Montreal and all
we
say back east, right?
Oh, are you from
back
Montreal?
East. I am. I was born there.
But that's not even east. It's more like middle.
East. No, it's east.
Okay.
It's past Ontario, which is huge.
That's right.
So
the middle's actually in Manitoba.
Well, Toronto's the center of the universe.
I don't have a drum.
Oh, that didn't sound good. So in the morning, gents, I only recently discovered your show and I'm really liking your work. Most notably the episodes with Marty Leeds, Becky Chambers, and Joseph P. Farrell. There's still a lot to hear, which keeps me entertained.
That's better.
As I don't have or want a television. Also, thank you for your interest in my book. I hope you like it as much as I like your podcast. So he's going to come on the show with Nick the Rat. Another night of no agenda. So this is actually, as well, a call out to nights of one of our favorite podcasts. That's people that have donated like a certain amount to the No Agenda show. And we thought we'd have a platform for people, right? So if there's any out there listening, email Graham@Grimerica.com and we'll set it up.
Fuck yeah.
Or we're on Instagram as well. That's how I found some of them.
Some of them.
But yeah, it'd be nice to have a platform for people that they're definitely into podcasting. They're definitely, contributing to the No Agenda show, which is really good at deconstructing the mainstream news and crap, right?
That's right. And speaking of nights, we have sort of something similar over here. When people get to $432 in support, they can pick a guest and come on the show.
Yeah, provide your own accounting.
Yeah, we don't do the accounting. Speaking of...
Yeah, it hasn't happened yet.
It's
happened
James,
indirectly.
It's happened indirectly with people that have helped out in other ways.
Yeah.
So check out grimerica.ca/support. If you haven't already, big thanks to the people who are supporting us. We are in the dog days of summer and support is noticeably down. We're getting behind on the bills. So if you haven't signed up for a monthly or supported the show yet, maybe now's the time.
Could be the economy. Listening's up, listenership is up, and support is down, which is weird.
We
But
get
we
it
do
if
have
you can't afford it, but if you can and you just haven't gotten around to it, maybe now's the time.
Yeah, we do have a number of fixed expenses we have to pay every month, and it's good to have that stuff covered.
Yeah, so check it out. There's everything from $1 a month there, which would work out to about 25 cents an episode, to all the way up to $30 a month.
We might as well keep talking about ways to support as well. There's also the artwork, right?
That's right.
Mention that.
Yep. Yeah. So, do you want me to mention it?
Sure.
Okay. So, I just finished doing all the talking.
Okay, so the artwork, we have episode art every week, and it's listeners that have, submitted that art, and it shows up in your podcast player, or in most podcast players, and on the website, and I posted on Instagram, and Napoleon Doom, the guy that used to do all the art, is helping us by having people submit their art, and then there's a vote, and they vote on it. We might change up how it works, but for now, people can actually get their art on the weekly episodes. So send an email to nap@grimerica.com.
Last week was...
oh yeah, we should mention that too. Jeff Wilson.
Was it Jeff Wilson on last week? Yeah, that was his second or third.
Oh, now I'm confused.
And now, of course, this episode, for the first time ever, we actually already know who the artist is, and it's your sister.
My sister one, yeah.
Congrats.
That's for Clif Highs, yep.
Yeah.
But we should probably confirm that it was Jeff. Do you know that?
Who was last week? Electric Egypt? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
And the one before that, I can't remember the name. But
yeah. And then there's also t-shirts. I do have some classic Grimerica tees. I do have a picture on Instagram as well there to show. And those are the gray Moai style t-shirts. And we're asking for a donation of 25 or more, which just covers the cost and a little bit.
That's
a little
right.
bit extra there.
And
you can leave a voicemail. Send us packages to the P.O. box if you want.
The voicemail is, I think there's a button on the website, or you can go, what is it? Fucking speakpipe.com/Grimerica.
Yeah, there's probably a link in the show notes to all this stuff.
Probably.
I mean, I think the SpeakPipe link is in there. I'm not sure if that is, but everything else is in the show notes.
Yeah, so you can do a couple swipes away from... Graham does pretty intensive show notes. Better than most shows out there, so you can just kind of click here, click there, 2 clicks probably depending on what you're using, and you can be supporting the show in one way or another.
Yeah, because we don't have any ads
either. But it's email, tweeting, monetary, stories. I mean, just if you don't have the cash, just sending us a story helps us. Helps us with content.
I got a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A synchro.
Yeah. Want me to go? Do you got a jingle?
I was going somewhere.
About the ads, because we don't play any ads and we don't want to do a paywall and all that. So all our content is free.
No, that's not where I was going.
That wasn't where you're going?
Or were we right before that?
Voicemail, SpeakPipe?
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
Tell your friends about the show anyway. Sign people up for the newsletter. Grimerica.ca/news. Oh, so I was going to say, speaking of fucking a couple of swipes, I've heard a lot about Overcast, so I've been playing around with my pod player, because since almost I got into podcasting, I've been using iCatcher.
Yeah.
I never even ever really used the native one. I went straight to iCatcher almost right out of the gate. But I've been playing around, so I've been trying Overcast because I heard about it here, there. I heard about a few places now, and it's free. It's optional. They do value for value like us. So they have 3 different platforms per month you can, or whatever you can sign up for voluntarily. And it's worth checking out. You should download it. It's free. Just throw a couple shows on it. Start listening to one podcast on it.
But I'm totally fine with iCatcher. Why do I even need to
I don't know, because you listen to a lot of those shitty quality shows. So it's got a couple of those, a couple features, it'll cut out silence. So it's smart speed up. So instead of actually speeding up people's talking, it'll cut out any pauses. Or you can amplify. There's different options in there to EQ the voices. You can EQ it if the
I don't really live.
It's got bad
fine
audio.
with the audio. Yeah. I don't like this type of change.
No.
Apps and stuff and figuring out how to use a new one.
Yeah, you're like you're generational die soon. Make way for the innovators.
Not soon enough. Make way for the millennials.
Millennium Falcons. I don't know. I'm constantly looking for better versions of everything.
Yeah. No, I mean,
things that work
I'm
better.
Okay. I'm so
still always looking for a good email client. I haven't found one that really stands out.
Emails are tough. That's one of the most time-consuming parts of the show is trying to manage the emails.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the website. We need more bloggers. All the bloggers are taking
I just forwarded you a new
too.
blogger.
Yeah, I seen that.
Actually, it was Andrew, the guy we just read his letter. It was Lemessony, yeah.
Oh, he's the Baron?
Yeah.
The Baron with the headband?
Yeah.
Send some headband.
Yeah, so we'll put up, but yeah, bloggers would help too, right?
Yeah. That's right. Generates more content for the website because we're too lazy. So what do you got for me, buddy?
I got
an
a
excuse to play a jingle.
Story/synchronicity.
Which I'll let you pick.
Synchronicity. Oh, Take Me Down.
Mother of fuck. Where's the fucking...
Yeah, good job there, Jingle Man.
I want a good score for my synchronicity. If Graham reads it out, then Darren might give it to me. Hey,
Jingle Man? Did you call me Jingle Man?
Wow.
Why would you call me Jingle Man? Because I'm the Jingle Man? But you said it like almost in a derogatory sense.
It was at that point.
What? Is that a slur or some kind? You jingling bastard.
So, this is a synchronicity report. And this is from a listener, Ulysses Newcomb. He says,
sounds familiar.
Yeah. You've probably seen him on social media and stuff.
Twitter, I think.
Yeah, he's on Instagram quite a bit. So he says, a little background on this will help. First, I manage a large apartment building with lots of common space where tenants meet and hang out. Second, I'm a practicing magician. Third, I recently reconfigured my altar to include Bastet, that's an Egyptian goddess, and a half-human, half-lizard spirit god whose name I do not know, nor have I ever encountered this type of spirit in any of the books I've read. My first encounter with the image of this god was in meditation near a stream in Squamish, BC. I just spontaneously saw this image and I drew it so as not to forget it. And he provided me a link to the image. I figured it might make it into a t-shirt someday. I played with the image a little bit here and there, and of some sort of amused fascination, I created a Photoshop version and came up with this, and he sent me another link. Anyways, this all started about 4.5 years ago, leading up to early June of 2016 when I decided to rejig my altar. This altar change was mainly prompted by reading Gordon White's Chaos Protocols. Actually, Gordon White was on the show. It was a great episode. I'll link to that in the show notes. I felt an itch to change things for a while, and reading the book inspired me. After about a week of careful consideration and reading tarot cards to see what may result from it, I decided to print out the photoshopped image of the lizard and frame it in a tiny frame to place it on the left side of my altar opposite Bastet, along with a few other items such as tarot cards and jewelry. My routine then became to keep fresh flowers and purified water on the altar and burn candles regularly and incense to the spirits. I would pray to Bastet, offering her gifts, and then pray to the stranger on my left, making a wish to have him reveal himself and his name. It seemed awkward that I was praying to an unknown spirit with no name. There were things happening over the last 6 weeks, minor poltergeist effects, life going more smoothly in general. My demeanor became more poised, patient, and calm, which is enough of a result for me to keep at it. But about a week ago, I read my horoscope as written by Austin Kopach. You really should have him on the show, by the way, and a few others. As a result, I wrote in my iPhone calendar to expect good news on Tuesday the 19th, which was the day of the full moon. On Tuesday morning, some tenants came to my office with an issue. They had found a lizard in the parkade. A full-grown bearded dragon. Our apartment building does not allow pets, so I had to find a home for this gorgeous creature. It was pale and lethargic, but otherwise in good shape. We called the SPCA, but they said they would only pick up the animal if we filed an invasive species report. We knew that probably meant they would kill the lizard. Not an acceptable option. I texted a former staff who keeps reptiles as a hobby, but he could not take the lizard in for lack of space. I put up 2 Craigslist ads in the hopes of finding the owner. And then it struck me that a tenant who moved out about 3 weeks prior had been found to have a lizard in his unit only 2 years ago. About 2 years ago. There's a long list of reasons why this particular tenant being at the center of this is its own synchronicity, but I am not at liberty to go into details. Lizards, not being stinky or noisy animal, nor did this type of animal impose a threat of carrying bed bugs or fleas. I gave the tenant a mild warning and forgot about it. But Tuesday, I realized this may be the tenant's lizard who escaped during the move. So I texted the guy who confirmed my thought and planned to pick up a lizard a few hours later. So we just had to keep the lizard alive a few hours. This was getting better. We put it in the sauna at the recommended temperature and put blueberries and cucumbers in his box as well as a cup of water. As soon as the initial stress of the event subsided, I was able to go and enjoy the animal's presence and let myself completely realize what was really happening here. I took a second to admire the creature and then said with all my intent, "I love you." At which point the lizard immediately lunged towards me at the edge of the box. I hand-fed him some cucumber and started rubbing his chin and his head. He climbed up onto me and enjoyed the warmth of my body. Gradually, over the next 2 hours, all his beautiful colors came back. And then he sent more images of him and the lizard. The tenants involved in helping me with his rescue named him Misty, but the owner had named him Biggs. So I personally named him Big Misty because I cannot think of a better or more appropriate name for the stranger to my left. I certainly did not get good news on Tuesday. I certainly did get good news on Tuesday. I would feel honored if you share the story on your podcast, and I am certain Big Misty would be proud if you did so. Best of luck with your life, Ulysses.
The lizard synchro.
Yeah.
That's
I'll throw some those pics on Instagram too. Yeah, that's interesting. He was praying for the lizard to come and show him his name and all that, and then this one shows up. It looks kind of similar too.
Kind of Doorsy.
Doorsy, yeah.
Give it an 8.
Oh,
a lizard 8.
That's a good one.
Graham.
Good thing the mixer doesn't affect the mix.
Yeah, there's a couple other pictures from
we got
that I want to put on Instagram for listeners.
We've got quite a bit of art lately.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
One day we'll turn it all into t-shirts or something.
Yeah, maybe. So thanks, Ulysses. Yeah, that's a good one.
You should get them all tattooed. All the different art pieces. We'll start some sleeves for you.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Yeah, I don't think so.
No?
Yeah.
Do you have any tattoos?
No. I've always wanted one, but now I'm thinking maybe I'd just be the different guy without one.
Get a Grimerica tattoo on your ass. Grimerica.
Yeah. So it's been interesting lately, all the news and all the weather going on.
Weather? Are you going to talk about the hail seeding?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I got an email from a listener the same day as you sent me a picture of the local, because usually, so do you want to just do the left? Yeah.
Graham is an all-in believer in chemtrails.
So?
I'd rather have the Kate Bush jingle. So I got an email, but the same day you sent me that
front page of the Calgary Sun.
Yeah, front page of the Calgary Sun.
That the hail suppressant planes are busier than usual.
Yeah. Alberta storm busting pilots are having one of their busiest years ever. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read this because I think this is fascinating.
You found it online?
Yeah. I think it's fascinating that this really becoming, I don't know, mainstream news and stuff, that there's actually like storm modification and weather modification going on, right? Pilots flying and dropping shit through the clouds, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So it's good. It's coming out and people are talking about it.
Do you think it's like malevolent, or do you think it's just nobody cares?
No, well, I'll get to that.
Okay.
I think this article and this, like what we're doing locally, could be just malevolent. No, benevolent.
Nobody cares.
Benevolent, like it's just, you know.
They want to stop the hail from fucking shit up.
But they're spraying chemicals, right?
Is it chemicals or steel or something?
Steel, well.
You go ahead and read the article.
Okay, so Alberta's hail-busting pilots have had one of their busiest summers yet, tackling an average of 3 storms per day. And this is very relevant for the show with Clif High, because he was talking about these popcorn storms, right? And he's talking about how they're happening now and they're going to keep happening. And what do you see through Calgary? Like, it's all these fucking popcorn storms, right? Like every day for a month or two, it storms in the afternoon. Weird cloudy storms that you can see from miles away.
Yeah, it's been stormy as fuck.
But they're all like little isolated,
a couple big ones, but mostly little ones.
Yeah. So the Alberta Severe Weather Management Society's team of 11 pilots, aided by 3 meteorologists on the ground, fly directly into the fiercest storm cells to break up hail. Their efforts often save Albertans and their insurance companies from dealing with the havoc wreaked by the most threatening storms. The hail suppression project cannot eliminate hail, but the goal is to reduce the damage that could occur, said Program Director Terry Nouse. Hail forms when small ice particles held aloft for a long time, allowing them to grow. They fall to earth either when the updraft holding it there weakens, the hailstone becomes too heavy, or it moves into a downdraft. In southern Alberta, that can lead to hailstones the size of golf balls, like the ones that caused millions of damage in Calgary in 2012. And this summer, the province farmers were on track to break the record set for crop insurance claims in 2012. Since 1996, the ASWMS has been trying to prevent this through a process called cloud seeding. Pilots taking off from this airport in the middle of storm cells and fire off silver iodide flares, which prevent the hail from growing. Over the last 5 years, insurance paid out nearly $2 billion in claims from hail damage, the Bureau of Canada estimates. Meanwhile, the insurance industry invests about $6 million in the hail suppression project per year. So they say it's hard to judge, how much money Alberta Severe Weather Management Society, which contracts the U.S.-based Weather Modification Inc. for the seeding. Weather Modification Inc.? I gotta look that one up.
That's the name of the company.
Yeah. Oh, just let me make a note of that. And then it says, what does it say here? He says they say it saves insurers, but radar imaging shows that the process is effective at diminishing the intensity of the storms, reducing the hail damage by only a few percent more than pays for the program. And the team is certainly working. He says the team's 5 planes have spent over 220 hours in the air so far this summer, seeding 69 storms in 23 days.
Oh, look at I'm at the website. They got all sorts of shit going on, mostly in the States. In Canada, they've got the Alberta Hail Suppression Project. Oh, yeah. So their clients are the Alberta Hail Suppression Project. Their other clients are British Columbia Hydro and Power Authority, Saskatchewan Natural Hydrology Research Agency, National Hydrology. Weathermodification.com. That's their website.
Wow. What do they do in the States?
Services. Weather Modification Inc. has a wide range of services to provide knowledge, data, equipment, and capability at any phase in your project. We can also tailor a program to meet your specific objectives and manage it from beginning to end.
Wow.
Our talented scientists, researchers, project managers, technicians, and pilots have the expertise you need to carry out an efficient and effective weather program.
Wow. Crazy. That doesn't affect global warming, or does it?
I don't know.
It doesn't say that, eh? So can you make money off that? Buying weather derivatives?
I don't know.
I gotta talk to you about that.
There's aerial cloud seeding and ground-based cloud seeding.
That's like Cape Bush style cloud busting.
Oh, look at these planes of theirs, spray planes.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they look like chemtrail planes? Wow, they got a whole fleet?
Yeah. So they have increasing precipitation cloud seeding, mitigating hail damage, and dispensing fog.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that leads me to an email from one of our listeners. Let me find this one here. This is from Peter Commodore. He says, "Hey, Graham, you may wish to use this as ammunition in your ongoing war with Darren on chemtrails." And he crossed out chemtrails and put weather modification with a wink.
Chemtrails.
And he says, Minister leaves the door open on new probe into Hydro Tasmania's cloud seeding program. So it says the Tasmanian government is not ruling out an independent inquiry into Hydro Tasmania's cloud seeding operation. So they're saying a cloud seeding flight took place in the Derwent Valley in June, the day before a major flooding event. So everybody's all up in arms about it. And they did their own, the people like the hydro company that does all this, did their own investigation into it. And now everybody's upset because they did their own investigation and the Tasmanian government wants to do an independent inquiry into it.
Nice.
Pretty interesting. And then from that, they also talk about, I got this other one here. Forget tornadoes, rain bombs are the latest trending warfare weapons. I mean, and this could make sense. Why? Like, there's flash floods going on all over right now, right? You're hearing about it everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't want to, speculate too much, but it's interesting. So it says,
I already did.
Insurance company concerns, weather wars. In 2008, the CFTC requests public input on possible regulation of event contracts. So it says, now where there are weather and earth-shaking technologies, or some circles call these weather and electromagnetic weapons, used insidiously, unfortunately, by our military or intelligence apparatus and perhaps our military contractors for purposes contrary to that which our public services take their oath of office to the Constitution. I suggest prohibiting the use of that technology rather than leaving someone else holding the bag in the event destruction produced by and where so-called natural events were produced by military contractor technology in the guise of Mother Nature. So it links to this insurance company document about weather modification. And it talks about, I wanted to get to a couple of specific things here just to highlight it. It's like a 35-page insurance document. And it talks about, it also has that weather as a force multiplier, owning the weather in 2025. You hear about that from the U.S. military-industrial complex. And then, but it does have a summary here. Where was it? Two key technologies are necessary to meld an integrated, comprehensive, responsive, precise, and effective weather modification system. It says advances in science of chaos are critical to this endeavor. Also key to the feasibility of such a system is the ability to model the extremely complex nonlinear system of global weather in ways that can accurately predict the outcome of changes in the influencing variables. So it goes on to say, advances in these two areas would make it feasible to affect regional weather patterns by making small continuous nudges to one or more influencing factors. Conceivably, with enough lead time and the right conditions, you could get made-to-order weather.
Don't point at me.
The total weather modification process would be a real-time loop of continuous, appropriate, measured interventions and feedback capable of producing desired weather behavior.
That's what weather modification experts do.
Yeah.
Well, we should modify some weather.
I don't want to modify it. I want
make it rain.
They should just be fucking
Let's make
leaving
it
the weather
rain.
alone.
Let's make it rain.
How can people...
Just one time. Let's see how much it costs. Just make it rain.
You want to just contact those guys and say we want to make it rain?
Yeah.
Like there's a drought going on. Can we make it rain? Or can you make the fucking clouds stop in Calgary? Like if you're,
Well, they're already
are
here,
they nudging it
we should
over
see
to
if
us?
we can interview someone from the hail suppression team.
We should. Yeah.
You can fucking berate them.
I'll just finish-
saving Knight Rider from getting the shit kicked out of it.
I'll just finish off this this paragraph in this thing here. The essential ingredient of the weather modification system is the set of intervention techniques used to modify the weather. The number of specific intervention methodologies is limited only by the imagination. But with few exceptions, they involve infusing either energy or chemicals into the meteorological process in the right way at the right place and time. The intervention could be designed to modify the weather in a number of ways, such as influencing clouds and precipitation, storm intensity, climate, space, or fog. It's fascinating to me.
Clearly.
I mean, this is where like all these conspiracy theorists are getting
mixed up.
Well, they're talking about nanoparticles and ground-based ionospheric mirrors, artificial mirrors in the ionosphere, space weather modification. This is an insurance document.
Really?
Yeah.
You should print it.
I will. I'll put it up in the studio.
Okay. Light reading. I'll put it on my toilet.
Nanotechnology also offers possibilities for creating simulated weather, a cloud or several clouds of microscopic computer particles, all communicating with each other with a larger control system and provide tremendous capability. Could provide
a nano hurricane.
For instance, virtual weather could be created by influencing the weather information received by an end user.
No, that seems far-fetched.
Interconnected, atmospherically buoyant, and having navigation capability in 3 dimensions, such clouds could be designed to have a wide range of properties. Even if power levels achieved were insufficient to be an effective strike weapon, and then it says in brackets, if power levels were sufficient, they would be an effective strike weapon. The potential for psychological operations in many situations could be fantastic. One major advantage of using simulated weather to achieve a desired effect is that, unlike other approaches, it makes what are otherwise the results of deliberate actions appear to be the consequence of natural weather phenomena.
There you go.
Those fuckers. In addition, it is potentially relatively inexpensive to do so. Just like the CIA director said, it's only, $2 billion a year to fuck with the whole globe.
That's nothing.
So then,
money well spent.
So then in that thing, it also says disaster capitalism, weather derivatives. Slowly began trading over the counter in 1997, betting on bad weather. Weather derivatives are financial instruments that can be used by organizations or individuals as a part of a risk management strategy to reduce risk associated with adverse or unexpected weather conditions. And they got a whole bunch of they're using HDDs, which is heating degree days, or CDDs, which are cooling degree days. This is ridiculous. There's a whole history of the first weather derivative was in July 1996.
You can bet on the weather?
Yes. So who's fucking betting on the weather and getting those guys to fucking make it rain or make it sun?
Now we're talking. We'll
right?
bet on the weather.
Let's bet on the weather and
flood out some towns.
Yeah. Flash flood, rain bomb, and bet on the rain.
We're in. I'm in. I like it. Where we should pick a town. What town are we going to fuck up? We'll take suggestions. Email your suggestions to Graham.
The CME currently lists weather derivative contracts for 25 cities in the United States, 11 in Europe, 6 in Canada, 3 in Australia, and 3 in Japan. Most of these financial instruments track cooling degree days or heating degree days. But other products, can you believe it? Products. A financial fucking derivative or short tracks snowfall and rainfall at 10 separate U.S. locations. The CMA Hurricane Index, an innovation developed by the reinsurance industry, provides contracts that are based on a formula derived from wind speed and radius of named storms to the point of U.S. landfall. You can bet on hurricanes and just nudge it a little bit over there.
How do we get in on the racket?
I don't want to get in on a racket.
Why not? If there's a racket, there's a racket. You might as well be in on it.
Yeah, so there you go, buddy. There's my segment. Interesting, eh?
This is a better one. This is the best one yet.
Oh, it's fun, eh?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, all the other ones were not fun. This is the first one that was fun.
Hey, I'm getting good feedback from listeners. They like it, the Weatherman segment. Hey, it started with the 78 Senate report.
I get more good feedback on the jingle than the segment.
Right. Anyways.
That was a fun one. Keep getting coming like that.
Well, it's just, doesn't it bother you that there's this whole...
It did, but not like 10 episodes in a row bothers. This thing really
it's
gets
every
you.
third
This
episode
thing
or so.
really gets you.
I have a fascination with weather modification.
That's how we should make it rain.
I swear it stems from
Then
Kate
you can
Bush's
be like,
video in 1985.
when people argue with you, you can be like, listen, motherfucker, I modified the weather. Okay?
I won money on it.
Yeah. Or you could maybe go for a ride in the hail seeding plane.
Yeah.
That sounds like way too much liability, flying civilians into storms.
So the other thing is, what is the chemicals? What is that doing to not only our atmosphere but our environment? Like, where's the oversight on this worldwide global weather modification program?
I can't tell you that, but you should email them. I bet you they'd happily send someone. Don't start getting all rammy with them, all Grammy right off the bat. Send them a nice email, say you were interested in the technology. Come on the show.
All right.
Like, you fucking cloud seeding fucking Satanist prick.
It's just, I just think we should just leave it all alone. Leave the weather alone.
Maybe they'll take you on a plane ride.
Stop. Oh, the other thing is...
You could go see the cloud.
Yeah. Yeah.
No? Mm-mm. I look at that the same as a racket. If the clouds are getting seeded anyway, you might as well go for a ride.
Right on. Well, that's that, buddy.
That's that? That's the end of the segment?
And I have a new one already lined up. I just thought of something, too, that I forgot to talk about in this segment. So
perfect.
I'll save it for the next one.
Nice. Anything else?
No, I've got some more listener stuff, but I'll save it for Tuesday. We got to do another intro in a few days here, so...
Yeah, perfect.
Right before I go.
Before you go ball hockeying?
Yeah.
In the over 50 league?
It's not over 50. It's over 36. Are you even 30? You couldn't even play.
I couldn't even play. I'd be your youngest guy. Not your fastest.
Wow.
Or your most agile. Or anything.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We're playing against Ontario and Saskatchewan and Alberta.
I hope your injury is light, but my psychic powers are for serious.
Yeah, I won't be getting injured.
No?
No.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
All right, guys, enjoy this. I wonder what Cliff thinks.
Yeah.
We should ask Cliff if Graham gets hurt at
never
ball.
Never ask about personal.
Especially not ball hockey.
It's a profound UFO quote of the week. Words to ponder and critique. It's a profound UFO quote of the week.
Oh, I love that jingle. So, this is just real quick one. This is the UFO quote. My favorite part. Air Force.
I think they fucking picked that up.
Air Force interceptors still pursue UFOs as a matter of national security to this country and to determine technical aspects involved. That was from Major General Joe W. Kelly, 1957.
Major Joe?
Yeah.
1957.
1957.
Yeah. I think that was like the last year America had. I was looking at a chart today for something. I think it was the declining growth of the U.S. economy, or It's like just, it was 57 was like the peak. 49 to 57 was like boom, boom. And sometimes I feel like we're just born in the wrong era. We were born in the broke era. Fucking runaway capitalism.
Yeah, but the connected, interesting era. I mean, things are pretty interesting.
That's right. You can have chase Pokemon all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
Have you tried it yet?
If I tried it, no.
No? Buddy lost 25 pounds.
Come on. That's just ridiculous. That's just fucking media bullshit propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
Pikachu. All right, guys.
I'm not saying he didn't lose it, but it's just ridiculous story.
I know. I'll get Pokemon, I'll lose weight. Everyone's always talking about how it gets everyone outside. It's like, well, you know what? Maybe baseball should get them outside.
Or how about just the sunshine, walking around, fresh air?
Sun's pretty hard on you.
No, it's not as hard as you think.
You white boys get
it's not as hard
easy.
as you think. Yeah. It's actually good for you.
I know it is good for me. I'm solar powered. Indians are solar powered. You didn't know that?
Are you a sun gazer?
A breatharian?
A breatharian, yeah.
No. I'm not an idiot.
We should have a breatharian on. I was trying to a while back. Do you remember? But you weren't really digging it.
No, because it's ridiculous. We will run out of things to talk about in about 3 minutes. Once she says her spiel, there's like, what else do you say to that?
There's science behind it, man.
There's no
You're supposed to look at the sun without sunglasses. You need the UVA and the UVB. I was just listening to it tonight on one of my new favorite podcasts.
You're not a plant.
No, I'm serious.
You need to eat food.
No, I know that. I'm just saying the sun is better than they think, right? Like it doesn't.
I don't think the sun's bad for you, but I think you need to eat food.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, let's agree to agree on that.
Okay.
All right, guys, enjoy the chat with Cliff. It's a good one.
Today we have Clif High with us. Now, Clif's created these future forecasts via radical predictive linguistics. It's a bit of a mouthful. I'm not going to try and describe it much more past that because I want Clif to talk about it. But we've chatted with him about him with some of our listeners, and we finally connected with Clif. And it's good to have you here, Clif. Thanks for coming on.
Sure, no worries at all. Thank you much.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of complex what you do, and I've been listening to some of your videos and reading some of your reports. It's pretty fascinating stuff. So I think it's probably worth trying to describe the process that you do here to get your predictions and stuff like that, and try and sort of dumb it down for me a little bit.
Well, there's actually nothing in it that's particularly complicated. It's just complex. There's just a lot of moving parts, right?
Yeah.
And basically what we do is we operate on the assumption that all the humans are out there walking around and they're leaking out psychic impressions all the time, and mostly they just don't know it.
Okay.
And that a lot of these psychic impressions are leaked out via their choice of language. And I can prove mathematically to people that this is the case, and we can even demonstrate it easily enough with individual cases. But basically what happens is, say that you knew you were a native English speaker and you had 100,000 words internalized. That is, you knew the meaning of them, you were comfortable using them to some degree, and so on.
Yeah.
In the normal course of your work, you might only, in your daily life, in any given week, you might only use, say, 2 to 3,000 of those 100,000 words just in native business. And so what I did was years ago discovered that when people leaked out their psychic impressions, they would do it by, one method was by what I call reaching or reaching way into their internal lexicon and pulling out words they wouldn't normally use. And they didn't know why they were doing it. They couldn't, if you caught them doing it and asked them, well, why'd you choose that word? They'd get, this sort of like puzzled look on their face because they really didn't know. And so I started really tracking this down, and basically to sum it all up, what my software does is it goes on out and gathers up all of these changes and these exceptional reaches within the lexicons for people for language, and then it plots it all in a big thing I call model space, a big canvas, if you will, virtual canvas, and then we make predictions based on these psychic leaks that are coming out. Sort of makes sense?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. It's funny. Before I read that,
it almost seems like a 100 monkey sort of situation right off the bat, right?
It does, and actually there's a component to it in the sense that because we're unaware of this, that's the 101th monkey there. We just don't know we're doing it, right? So there is an aspect of universe intruding because we don't know what prompts us to make these changes ahead of events, but they do actually occur. So, in other words, you'll know at some level, almost all people will know at some level those events that are going to affect them personally. And a lot of people are just too tied up in their daily life to pay attention to these odd little feelings that they get, right? But some people do become aware of those feelings, and then they'll note, oh, my left toe twitched and so-and-so the ice cream man showed up, therefore there's this link, that kind of thing. But mostly we don't. So there's a real component of serendipitous universe involved.
I like that. See, right off the bat, this is making me think, and this could be completely off base, but how would that relate to like the Mandela effect? Because when we started talking about that, I started thinking about the Berenstain Bears has been a big one around here lately. And is there any sort of tie-in in between those two?
Yes, there is. We've got to be real careful there, though, because of the nature of what it is to be human and our brains. We have to understand that our biology is set up for us to be pattern matching creatures. As you walk through the forest, your eyes start, even though you've never seen these kind of trees, this kind of forest before, within a few minutes, your brain starts recognizing and formulating patterns to keep your butt alive in this strange environment. And so we have that pattern matching effect going on, and we will tend to see patterns where they don't exist. So that's one caveat. The other caveat is that I don't want to really get too deep into that particular time wobble or wrinkle at the moment because of some stuff that's pending in my reports about that subject at a peripheral level. And I don't want to set up a situation of like blowing the maturity, or I don't want to set it up so that I mention something and then later on it actually shows up and someone can come on back and say, oh, well, it occurred because you mentioned it. But I will say that there is indeed, there is evidence that can be pointed to at a physical, tangible, go over there and touch it kind of level that proves that the effect is valid. It may not be as widespread as many people believe, but nonetheless, at its core, just like the UFOs, it only takes one instance and you've got a valid phenomenon.
Right. It's so interesting because when I started to listen to your reports and your YouTube videos, I hadn't yet learned about your process. So I was actually thinking, it seemed like you were picking up on people's subconscious psychic tendencies or something like that. And then I realized that that's what you were actually doing. So it's pretty interesting. Do you have any, just for people that might think this is a little bit out there or whatever, do you have any good evidence or instances where this was really playing out properly and correctly? And
Sure. Yeah. Today is the 16th. And so on the last two Thursdays, so on the 14th, 2 days ago, and on the previous Thursday, on the 7th, I did videos referencing a forecast that came out of our data that was going to happen in the late afternoon relative to the New York markets. It was going to be a cause of some consternation for the trading community over the weekend. It was going to be something that was unknown in terms of its origin. I mean, we didn't have the descriptor of it. We just knew what its effects would be. And so I was able to describe that on the 7th, and then I did another video on the 14th because I realized I was off by 7 days relative to the forecast. The forecast was for a Friday, late in the afternoon relative to New York markets, which makes it around 1:30 p.m.-ish. And that's when the turkey coup came about, this brief little theater that they've had there. And it had all of the effects described. So I was able to describe it in 2 videos, one a week and a day ahead of time, and then the other a day ahead of time.
So how does it work then? Do you run this once a month, this kind of thing?
Yeah. Basically, my software was written in the dark ages of computing, where we didn't have a lot of either processing power or storage, and it's very intensive on both. So I had to do it in a batch process. So I've never, ever altered the process to make it continuous, nor would I have the technical resources to maintain that. That would require people and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I basically run it over the course of about 20-plus days a month. To produce a report, and then we rush like hell to get the report out before the stuff actually happens.
Right.
Because the I was able to, way back when, slice and dice the information coming in to the data sets into long-term data, short-term data, and immediacy data. And the one that had all the details was the immediacy data. It's usually effective from about 3 days out to about the end of the 3rd week. And mostly it's effective within those 3 days. So when we start interpreting that, we've got to really rush to get the report out before the stuff actually starts happening.
All right. And you do see it happening most of the time, almost every month?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. The accuracy rate's going up over time because I've been spending the time to what I call tune the lexicon. And it's not like there's an instrument or a musical instrument or anything. It's actually I go in and tweak around in the database and the code and establish software algorithmic relationships and fine-tune these numbers which represent quantity and quality of emotions attached to words.
I was going to ask you about the emotional part. So how does that play into the report?
It's all emotional. Okay, so we don't get any conscious words. So in other words, if you're out there thinking, if you're a real psychic individual and you're chatting with your Aunt Mary on Facebook or something, and you type in there, geez, I got a funny feeling that, so-and-so, some famous personality or whatever is going to get hit on the head by an apple dropped off an airplane. We don't pick that kind of stuff up. What we actually end up doing is hunt for shifts in emotional valences, emotional values. Okay, so what I'm looking for in the data sets is a shift in emotional intensity and duration and other values that are assigned to words. When those occur, then I go back and look at the context in which that was associated. Then I pick up that value out of the lexicon, find those words that are associated with it, link it to the context, and make the forecast. It sounds simple, but it's hugely complicated.
That doesn't sound simple to me.
It doesn't sound simple. So
well, it sounds simple when I say it.
Yeah.
So is the software basically, do they have to knowingly take part, or is the software just sort of creeping through the internet?
There you go.
Yeah, it's spidering.
It's a sneaky thing, right? It's a sneaky spider that runs out and eats web pages all the time. I don't care about who says what, so we don't ever save any information about any individual. We save information about the context in which the conversation occurred and the valences of the emotional parameters involved. And that's really about it. It amounts to a huge amount of hexadecimal digits for each conversation that we sample, and then we sample I think we're up to about 120 million for every run, most of which get discarded because most of which are of no value to us. So it's kind of like what we end up having to do is to scoop up vast quantities of text and then distill it down to a thick syrupy mass. So no individual could ever be traced out of that thick syrupy mass. And what we end up getting is, if you will, an aggregate zeitgeist, an emotional feeling of the moment, very Zen kind of a thing.
So it's basically a barometer for the emotional state of the planet?
That I am able to sample, correct. I wouldn't go so far as to say the whole planet. Because
right, the sample of it, yeah.
Correct. But yes, that's very accurate.
So how do you take into account the media, the mainstream media that sort of propagates all this stuff that leaves a lot of the fact out of the view? Like they kind of have an agenda, and is some of your analysis based on that, or is it based on the deeper parts of the conversation behind the scenes?
See, it doesn't work that way at all, because it's not an analysis as one might think. Okay, so because the media, I've often had people say, "Oh, well, you're just picking up conversations about movies or something, or the media and so on." But you have to understand that all language can have an emotional quantifier and qualifier put to it. Because that is the case from a linguistic viewpoint, in any vast quantity of conversation, it's very easy to pick out the artificial, pumped up text. So whether it's a demagogue trying to whip up a crowd, CNN, or some kid on a rant in his basement, it's easy to follow those linguistic patterns and eliminate them. So it's very easy to eliminate the professional media from our conversations here that we scoop up, simply because they're following a script. It's always within this emotional range. It always has these kind of emotional qualifiers. If they're attempting to gen up something, it always goes this direction. So the algorithms can just scrub that out really easily. And that's what a lot of it is just throwing away stuff where it's not pertinent and it would pollute the sample.
How does it decide what's a viable sample? Is it certain keywords?
At an initial stage, beyond that, it's a proprietary algorithm of my own design that delivers the serendipitous aspect of it. Now, the deterministic aspect, any computer programmer could duplicate, because in a deterministic run, which I'm able to do, for instance, a deterministic run would be where I would set my spiders to look for a specific kind of an event or occurrence or person that had a high enough level of fame or potential to generate discussion, and that would set the context, and then we would look for the emotional changes within that context. So if I wanted to, if I cared, I could choose a celebrity because they're very high in the emotional words being spoken about them. I could assume that someone, not ourselves, but someone like a movie star kind of person I'd be able to track them, right? And then I could figure out in a basic way what is likely in their near-term future, just based on the psychic impressions leaking out from all of the people discussing them. And it's easy to find the celebrity, it's easy to track, but it's difficult to get anything that's accurate because of the high level of emotional intensity doesn't allow for any nuance. So, if everybody thought of somebody positive, you're going to get a very focused kind of a misleading view of them, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, because they're kind of put up on a pedestal.
Correct.
They can't be propped. So it's almost like you need the person to be anonymous, but then you don't have enough people thinking about them to make it relevant.
Correct. But there's an interesting occurrence that happens when people's names and their personalities have, public personalities have characteristics that are A, identifiable with them, and B, have some meaning in other languages. So, for instance, let me give you an example. There's this cool kid on the internet. He does YouTube videos. He's a techie guy, okay? Mm-hmm. And I came across him because his name meant something in Greek that I was following within the database, and so it was a serendipitous kind of an occurrence. And I just happened to be going along, and it pointed me at this guy in terms of a name, and I thought, well, I wonder if there is this person. And I went out on the internet, and sure enough, there was this guy doing YouTube videos. He had a high enough profile because of his YouTube videos that he sort of showed up in the data. And I won't go into the details on that, but in any event, one of the things I saw for him was that, oh, hey, he's going to have basically a almost accident at work. he's going to have an almost very serious accident at work involving his foot. That's as weird as it sounds, okay? And so I just out of the blue, I sent him an email saying, hey, dude, you'd better watch out. You're going to have a near miss at work involving your foot. And sure enough, it happened. And it was really scary for him because a transformer shorted out and there was electrical arcs that almost hit his foot and the whole thing. And he did a whole series of videos about it. And the only reason it occurred is because of the nature of his last name and its meaning in Greek. And the fact that we at that point were just coming through the Greek Cypriot bail-in thing. And there was a huge amount of emotional energy all about it, and it focused me towards him. So you get these weird situations where people pop into the data, if you will, because of what would seemingly be a random association in terms of their name and what happens to be going on at that time.
So that has pretty major implications. Does that mean that time's not linear? Can it be something simpler like a ripple stick or like a field that projects forward a little bit as well? How far out does it go?
Well, okay, now you bring up a weird subject and you once you start talking about time, you can get into this at a very significant level, and I've been thinking about this since with real seriousness since about 1993. And so I've got a lot of conclusions about that. And I have to ask first, how much of the next hour do we want to devote to that individual subject alone?
Yeah.
And I'm serious because I can go down.
To me, I mean, it's tough because they're both super interesting alleyways. But I mean, I'd love to go down both of them. Both
as in what? What do you mean both? Both time and
the ripple effect on the names and stuff, right? Well, let me put it to you this way. As a result of some of the stuff I've done and the level of openness that I've done it with out on the internet and so on, because I consider myself basically a tinkerer or a builder or a scientist in a sense. I want to see what happens. I'm not trying to promote a particular theory. If the data changes, I want to find out why because I'm curious. In any event, I've come to the attention of some people that were fairly prominent, and I've actually one of them in our first occurrence, he saved us economically here because we'd run into a big issue. But nonetheless, I did a private run on him, and I was able to determine some information about him to a shocking degree about 3.5 weeks out. So that's about how far. That's about how far I would personally trust on our previous evidence that sort of information about an individual. Yeah. Now, the other side of it is, at that time that occurred, maybe say 60% of the internet was still English, and the English speakers have a tendency to concentrate negative emotions and speech on the net. So all I was picking up was negative information about this fellow. So another caveat: you got to be careful what you look for. Mm. Now, the time part of it, that's really interesting because time is not as everybody presupposes, okay? We think, you were just asked, is time lineal? No, it's not. Time is drops, and that's what people don't understand. Time is not a river. Time is not a cycle. Time is not a linear progression, although there is progression, cycles, and rivers within time. But time basically comes into existence with every particle that comes into the materium. And the materium is the place where you and I are at this point within our bodies discussing time and space, and the materium is that place that I define where humans can experience time and space. Although I'm not so sure about the space part. I know that time only exists here. There may be other, let's call them places, where space exists that time does not. Mm-hmm. Nonetheless, though, we experience time within the materium. So we experience we experience matter and time in this area. And when each little droplet of matter is created by a universe, and we live in a universe that is continuously creating matter all around us, there was never any such thing as a Big Bang. The idea is absolutely absurd on so many levels, and energetically you can prove that it's absurd just with a couple of quick equations. But we live in a continuous creation, continuous destruction environment. And so the universe is constantly creating new matter around us, and every time new matter is created, it brings along with it its ration, if you will, of time. Now, time is interesting because time, unlike space, is not locally discrete. It's universally applicable. That is to say, each little droplet of time that comes on in participates in the universal now, the perpetual now that exists all over the universe. Space, for instance, which also comes along in the droplets of matter, can be locally different from the universe, whereas time is never locally different, although time can be universally effective, which gets into another realm. But so here's the thing. Your body is composed of bazillions of little tiny intersections of energy that collide so fast that they form a nexus. This nexus is perceived by your four senses. You only have four senses. The four senses in your body as solid, as matter. And it is not solid, and matter is really an illusion. But along with that perception of solidity, we also get the perception of time and space at that particular nexus. So your body is composed of all of these energetic nexus that bring in time with the pulse. And so it's constantly creating itself and destroying itself, and that allows us the perception and the both motion and time. So see, it gets really complicated.
Well, that kind of fits in with why gravity would affect time as well. I like, so I really like what you're talking about creating matter, because I had another kind of revelation on the show. Probably one of the guests that has the biggest impact on me so far and how the way I view the world was Neil Adams. And
I love Neil.
His theory of the growing planets and the pair production, and that like floored me. And as kind of one of the paradigm changing moments of the show, and I can kind of feel another one sort of coming on.
well, Neil is a personal hero. I love his graphics, and the Expando Earth model owes him a lot because he demonstrates it with such slap you in the face kind of validity to it, right? And he's quite correct about all of that. The plasma core of the planet, the production of matter, all of this kind of stuff can be validated and proved if you just can get somebody to sit down and listen to you for a few minutes.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. So Darren, do you want to move on to some of the predictions and stuff, or do you want to?
Yeah, no.
Do you have any more questions about time?
No, I think the time is good. I think if he can only go 2 to 3 weeks out, then to me it's not. It's more of it's a time travel, or it's not a time. It's like a ripple before the stick in the river. It's a ripple stick. It's
sort of like that.
It's limited. It's very limited. Effect. Yeah. That's how I look at it. I look at it as a stick in the river, and that whole thing is being a bit of a field effect as well. It's just a field effect that can be more visualized because it's in the water.
Okay, but you got to be real careful with analogies, okay? Because time is not like a water, and it's not like a river.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
And also, you participate in time, because if you're not here to participate in it, the quality of time is demonstrably different if you're not there participating in it. And so it gets down to some really serious thinking about it. But here's the thing. As a field, it's perfectly true on an individual level, about 3.5 weeks. That's why I've got my immediacy data set down to about to the end of the third week. And I say about because usually it trails off. The majority of it happens within 3 days, and then it trails off out to that period of time. And I've determined over time, and actually that's where all the details that come on in, the majority of them, about individuals. But we are able to determine things with the system that are several years out, and sometimes with striking accuracy. And then as the events become closer and closer to us, the aggregate level of data support for them grows, and the number of details grow. And this is how I ended up with the Blondes on Boats forecast about that boat, can't think of it now. Started with a C.
Tipped over in Italy, the Capricorn.
Correct. Yeah. And so we had that pretty much nailed in details 5 months out. But I first saw it appearing about 1.5 years out, and we noted some of the issues about the ocean and the accidents and that kind of stuff. So I'm of the opinion, and I can state that this opinion is somewhat evidentially based, that time aggregates, and that all the little small bits of time that will be part of your body as the new matter is coming into it in the future have an effect on our current field and our current consciousness now, even though they won't necessarily be created for, as we perceive it, 18 months out.
And it can't really be, is it tougher to aim, I guess? I don't know if aim's the right word, but because it seems like it has to be driven by emotion, right? It can't be.
Correct.
And, you hear the same sort of thing with from the ghost people as well. It's like moments of high emotion can kind of leave an imprint. Things like a residue, yeah. And I wonder, so does it get, if it has to be emotion, it seems like it's harder to control because you can't just get a room full of people to think about something.
Correct. So this is why we have a tendency to concentrate on all of the negative things, because of course the expression of vast quantities of negative emotion usually happens for our society in a negative fashion. We don't really have coordinated kinds of things for us to all go and express positive emotion. So those are really not built in the way that all the negative ones are. And you're quite correct, and it is you can't really aim at it. You just sort of have to sit there in the data and sift for it, or wait to have it roll over you. And so the Banda Aceh earthquake was just a horrific time because that year was so bad relative to the data, and then the earthquake happened. And I realized what was going on.
Is the earthquake then a product of the negative thinking? Like if the news started having positive news, could
we manifest more positive?
Could we manifest a better world?
I don't know. That certainly is within the realm of thinking.
Fun test.
Exactly so. I do know that it is perfectly.
Everybody just stop fucking around for like a month. Let's see what happens.
No. See, but there's another aspect of it too. Well, there's many more, but the other part of it is you have to ask yourself, okay, should we do that? In other words, is it necessary that we have this negative thing? Because every person's destiny is their own. Many people must have this destiny in order for their personal progress to go from life to life to life. Therefore, they must experience this negative stuff this life, and in fact, they signed up for it. So if we as a greater planet decided, okay, we're going to think conscious thoughts and not have this particular nasty earthquake happen, then we've actually altered those people's individual destiny into the future. So it gets really tricky.
But do you think it was ever meant to be on the scale? Like before, your misery or your negativity would be so much more localized. You'd think it would have to be far less abundant. Whereas now every negative thing that happens on the planet is crammed down your throat.
But is that not something that universe wants us to understand and accept and deal with now? We are not. We're not separate from nature. We are so internally. We are the cogs in nature. We participate with it. Like the Taoists say, the wise man can sneeze at the appropriate time and cause an empire to fall 1,000 miles away. So it's that interrelated. And so you've got to have a grander view that. Just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. But many times there's the other part of that thinking, and that is because universe has presented that idea to you, you must, right? Just because you can think of that technology, you've got to build it. and who knows? Universe wants you to,
See, it's hard because you can't get the internet back there 100 or 1,000 years ago to test.
Right. But on the other hand,
I wonder if could you do it via, like, if you could get a sample of, say, a bunch of letters from World War II or something like that, and somehow put them into the scan and get them into the algorithm. Could you do anything with something like that?
I did that from 1993 until about 1999. In order to establish the system, I needed what I consider to be a clean base of the emotive quantifiers and qualifiers for the lexicon. So as this stuff was coming onto the internet, I was pouring through all of these old newspapers that went back into the 1700s, 1600s. The 1800s were especially fruitful for me in English. And establishing the meaning of words through the lexicon, and then I updated it as I got into the more current time, and I discovered all kinds of fascinating things about how language evolves over time. But basically, yes, I can do that because that's how I started out. I went through so many newspapers, laboriously running OCRs or doing cut and pastes or retypes or whatever to get the words to be able to be picked up by the spiders, and then running them through in order to do the what I called the either reconciliation, the spread tests, or some of these others. Because you have to understand, emotion is not a static thing. A quick and easy, simple thing is if you work in an office, right? You go into the office on a Monday morning, you can feel the emotion of a Monday. I come on into an office. I don't work in the office. I'm a nice, happy guy. I'm not subjected to all of the fluorescent lights and all of the influences on my body. I can change the mood in an office just from the initial interaction with the receptionist person all the way through, simply because I know how the emotions are, and I don't want to necessarily put up with their negative emotions, so I would come on in and start brightening the area up, if you will, right? Because I can know the how particular words will help spread emotions and how far that spread can go and so on. I actually ran all these terrible studies. I called them the propagation studies. That went from like 98 to almost 2002. And I picked out all these fora is the plural of forum, but the forums on the internet, and I would go through and put in particular text in particular phrases and so forth, and then watch and see how long it takes it to spread and how far it would spread to other groups and so on. And it was, it was kind of, it was tedious. It was a hell of a lot of work. It was somewhat disingenuous of me. I wasn't lying to people, but there were times that I had to do things and express outrageous thoughts and so on to see what the language would do. So, I was aware I was also tweaking and screwing with people's emotions, and I felt bad about it personally at the time, but it was necessary for me to figure out how far this language would spread and how long it would take the intensity to dampen off and so on. I mean, I worked on this stuff from like I say, 93 when the idea first grabbed hold of me, and I'm still working on it.
So you needed that for a base, but I guess in a predictive sense, is that you couldn't like put that into the thing now and like predict anything valid from it. I guess another thing I wouldn't mind knowing is, do you notice any sort of bump, say when the local sports team is in the finals or something like that?
I deliberately exclude sports because they're always hot.
Exactly.
Right? There's no nuance. You always love them or you hate them, and so it doesn't work. Just like politics. I mean, I could do things with politics, but in order to get the nuance, I would have to get 100 million records, and maybe I would be left with a third of a million that I could actually deal with.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
So I guess you have to keep up on the language changing as well, right? Especially for English and social media, like all the abbreviations now and all the new words. Like half the time when I'm doing show notes, I'm looking, like the stuff I'm writing is not even in the dictionary, right? It's just all. It like
never will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dictionaries are static and dead by definition, and yes, and of course. Here's the other excruciating bleeding edge of the whole thing. Slang is where all that emotion leaks out, because it's not your papa's slang, right? Your words don't have the same meaning as those same words did for your father. So it changes on a generational basis, and then within each generation. And then you've got the this is why I had to do the propagation studies, because I noticed that slang was where the really cool stuff I was after really lived in all languages. And of course, that's all in the, say, sub-20 group, right? And then there's all the subcategories of the 8 to 11-year-olds and all of this sort of thing. But you find that slang is not predictable, that a very large percentage of it will drop off. And so maybe when I was doing the propagation studies in the late 90s, I would find areas where new slang words were popping up and they would die within 88 minutes and never be seen. And then some would show up and would go for days and days and days and then drop off. Some had legs. And I started working out the algorithms to tell me whether it was meaningful or not. Because part of the problem is someone uses a word, let's just pick a word, shizzle, and nobody knows what it means. You have a particular emotional component to it. It takes you a while to get that emotional nuance spread out to the populace as to what that word means. And then even when it comes back to you, that may even alter your original emotional input that you put onto that word, and then it just propagates out. And so there were the propagation studies, there were the analysis studies, and it was quite tedious to do all of that. I can go back and do some predictive stuff on some language, but there's an inherent bias in there that I don't have, and that is I'm not a native speaker of 1830s English. Right. So I'm not going to have the native connotations within that word set, and I won't have the same emotional meaning, and so the predictions would be skewed to my view of reality today.
Could it be more, could it even be more powerful if you were using a language that allowed for more emotion, like Spanish or something like that?
Oh, certainly. And also I find that Italian and Latin are the really key ones for timing. Yeah, you're quite correct. Each language has a let's say a preponderance towards a particular aspect of its character that it expresses. And so, for instance, we have the emotional languages of the Italians, French, and the Spanish. We have the cogitative languages of the Northern Europeans, German and so on. We have the amalgamating language, which is English, because it's also emotive, but it's also very technical. And then you have the all different kinds of Asian languages and their influences. There's 150 languages I track through multi-byte things in the Asian groups that feed into Chinese. And so, yeah, they each have an aspect that can be mined. I'm aware of these. I've got a lot of notes on them, but I've never had the wherewithal in terms of staffing, money, or time to tune the system to where it was actually taking advantage of that.
Wow. Fascinating.
I like it.
So, Darren, can we get into some of the stuff then, the predictions and all that? And
Yeah.
so, thanks for going through all that, Cliff. I really appreciate the depth and the background on all that.
Some
It's
of the listeners
fascinating.
appreciated I like that stuff.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So, as far as like the massive predictions that you've been coming out with lately and all, I'd really like to, and we want to give a shout out to Monica, who's one of your big fans, and she's a listener of ours, and she's written me like a million questions for you. So we're gonna get through some of them, and a lot of them they'll be just automatically answered. But to start with the financial stuff right now, and the sort of the central banksters, and that kind of leads into Bitcoin and the fall of the dollar and all this kind of stuff. Could you sort of wrap us around that whole thing?
Sure.
It's kind of a big question.
It's a big subject, right? But here's the thing. I have found that it helps to think of yourselves, to place oneself in a historical context. So in other words, if I have a historical model for the time I'm in, I can behave a certain way. So if I, as a rational human being, thought I was living in a country that was developing in a Nazi Germany, I would behave in a certain way such that I didn't get scooped up and put into a concentration camp, right? Yeah. And so if I were aware of the clues and I could say to myself, aha, these people are starting to go fascist on me, I'd better be careful, I would pursue that way. So what I like to do is I like to establish that historical context. And so it helps to have an understanding of the various different kinds of history and how they affect the social order that you're involved in at that time. And so at this point, what we can say is, and by way of analogy, is that we are in a very interesting period of time that resembles some aspects of the 1930s and the 1940s, in that we have the Depression aspect of it, and we have the potential for fascism developing. But that is, in my view, somewhat short-sighted, okay, because it doesn't take our view of history back far enough, because I think we're much more akin to the first collapse of the Roman Empire and the first era in which they did the major debasement of the denarius and cut it to the point where it was about 15% silver. Because here's the thing. It is true to say that all of the views of the social order in terms of, the societies start off as chaotic, they go to democratic and ultimately become totalitarian, and then they revolt and become democratic again. All those cycles are all true, but it's also true that a lot of that is driven by the nature of the money and so forth that we are dealing with. So at our core right now, for everybody listening to me, and regardless of our age, all of our problems are relating to the fact that they've destroyed our money. They've debased it to the point where we are dealing in nothing but tissues and lies, and those lies extend from the paper in our hands that we offer to someone to pay for real labor, and all the way up to the society that lives on these tissues of lies supported by the paper. And there's no real solid, sound money there. And if you examine the society of America from 1870 to 1910, you find a different character linguistically. The same thing as if you examine the society of America from the 1800s to the 1840s. You find a different character linguistically because we were on a gold standard, a gold coin standard during those period of time. And we were solid, we were sound. We could conquer the planet, we could conquer the universe. Now we're tenuous and all of our language has entirely changed, and it's all because our money is polluted. So let's get down to some of our predictions here. Over this next 6 months or so, we're going to coalesce into our 1930s, 1940s mindset here in the United States. And I'll not go into much going on outside the U.S. simply because I presume your audience is primarily U.S. based. But in the next 6 months or so, you'll see that the actual turn, the big change is going to be that people are not going to be talking about a recession. They're not going to be talking about a recovery. We're going to start using the D word in the sense that people will actually start talking about the United States being in a depression, in spite of what the power elite are trying to pump out through the media.
Yeah.
And now this marks a huge and fundamental change. The hidden despair that we see in a lot of the generations, not even thinking they have a future, will change over time because we're going to start actually acknowledging and therefore being able to deal with the underlying basis that is our problem here, and that is the depression. It'll take us some time to figure out that it's all this bogus paper money and to get rid of the Fed in order to cure ourselves of this. But it starts with being able to face reality and speak of it accurately. You'll note that in the three traditions on this planet that have ways in which people can become enlightened, all of them reference and say the very first act of an enlightened being is to call things by their real name. And you've got to understand that that's why linguists are really annoying bastards, but it's why you should sort of pay attention to them, because a lot of them are indeed linguists because they became enlightened and they cannot call things by inaccurate names anymore. Yeah, it's just not in their nature. And it leads one thing to another because, of course, all earthquakes are related because they're all happening on the same planet. So our particular earthquakes here are going to be individuals that will want to drive us into war. My data sets, in spite of what other people are showing or saying, out on the internet, you'll find a lot of very well-meaning individuals that have a lot of various different methods for saying the central banks are going to take us to war. Now, I agree with that because we've had no global war that did not exist without a central bank. We didn't have World War I until we had a central bank formed in 1912. World War II existed because of the central bank. No world war has ever occurred that was not existed by a central bank. So they want us to go there because that allows them to expunge all of their crimes and start it all over again. And they're actually desperately attempting to take us that way. But my data sets don't show that is successful. What it actually shows is a race, if you will, between the power elite and the failing of the dollar, because the dollar is what gives them their power. As I frequently point out, who gives a rat's ass about the old lady Hillary Clinton if she didn't have millions of dollars? Who would even pay attention to her? So, that kind of thing, or Donald Trump or any of these power elite individuals. And so the issue is that as the money, they're attempting to do a fighting retreat, and it's not going to work. Our data shows that there are circumstances that are going to sweep over them. The dollar's going to crumble faster than their efforts to delay it. Yeah. And that's going to cause this cascading effect of social and political change that will be augmented and speeded up by the social media. So it's going to be unlike anything we've ever had happen before, but exactly like everything that's happened before. Only it's going to be like taking 300 years of the degradation of Rome and compressing it all into 6 months.
Wow.
How's Canada going to fare?
Canada's going to have a real rough time with their dollar. The Canadian and Aussie dollars go ahead of the U.S. dollar, and the good news is they're one of the last to go. That you'll run into hyperinflation ahead of the U.S., worse than the U.S., but it won't last as long, and you guys will come out of it earlier than us. So Canada starts its recovery in 2019, more or less, whereas we don't really get into it here until about 2023, 2024. Canada does so because of their resources and also because of some Neil Adams kind of new material spooky stuff that's going to show up. I don't have a name for it or anything. It hasn't been named yet. I believe it'll be a naturally occurring crystal, but that's a supposition on my part. But it'll be mined in Canada and will be very, very valuable for the what I'm calling the new electrics, which is this new ways of dealing with electrical energy that produce the fields. And so Canada is going to have some kind of a mineral that's going to be used in the control circuitry. And so it's going to be a very valuable recovery for Canada because it puts you guys right into the It'd be kind of like being in the middle of Steve Jobs' garage, just as they're starting it, right?
Anyway, Grimerica can get in on the ground floor of this. We'll cut
locations of the mine.
Give me Grimerica / Neil High.
I've always wanted to hunt for crystals, so this might be the time to start.
Exactly so. But see, here's the thing. Okay, I'm only thinking it's a crystal, and when I start thinking about this stuff, as opposed to just looking at the data, we get into areas. But here's what I have to say. Okay, so say I've got 20,000 words that describe this, and there's probably about 200,000. I'm going through the 20,000, and it's like reading something out of the CIA, because it's mainly the word unknown or officially denied or unknown or not yet discovered. And then it'll say energy, and then it'll say unknown, not officially denied, not yet discovered, electrical, and so on and so on and so on. So there's very few clues in here because it is an unknown. We literally have not yet invented it. So as I liken this, it's like try and describe and get the idea across to someone in the Middle Ages of chewing gum. You can say the words to them, it's meaningless, right? So if you wanted to just describe them and have them label it, you're probably not necessarily going to come out with the word chewing.
You might say in food, some sort of food or something, yeah.
Exactly so. So looking at this data, it can become very misleading. And then just as with numbers, we get lots and lots and lots and lots of geographic references. So those are specifically misleading, and I don't trust them much. Now, it is true that insofar as the some of these things for new electrics and that kind of a deal over the past few years, the system has gotten to the point where we can aggregate and concentrate down the geographic references into a big lump. And so I can say with some certainty, based on the data, not on reality, but just based on the data, that the data is forecasting a large silver discovery of Neil Adams' new silver that will occur between Greece and Turkey in the bottom of the Adriatic. Okay, the reason I'm saying that is simply because of the associations to underseas, underwater, and all of that, plus all the geographic references clustering in that particular spot. Make sense?
Yeah. So in regards to the new electrics, do you think that has anything to do with disclosure? Like what do you call that whole topic of the space age farts or something like that? Because maybe this is the technology that the secret space program has been using, and it finally gets
Canada wouldn't have it though.
But it finally gets out there for everybody.
Okay, it may be that. But I don't think we can tell anymore. And here's why, okay? I'm quite convinced that the transistor, the diode, all of the solid-state electronics that were introduced after 1947 are indeed back-engineered space alien kind of stuff, right? So here's our problem. The new electrics are based on that, so they are inherently based on space alien technology from the get-go. And so I've got that in the associations, in the little entity, the Space Go Farts entity, where a lot of this new electric stuff shows up. I've got that inherent connection back to the space aliens. But I'm actually of the opinion that that's not what's going to occur.
Right.
That it's going to be native talent that will take space alien ideas and express them in a human way, and will do it with stuff that's here. And that, no, it's not external savior coming down to gift us with free energy. Rather, it's us little naked primates running around scratching our heads and our asses until we actually think of something. And by God, it's a really good idea.
And it's a Canadian one. I can get on board with that.
But now the Canadians provide 1/3 of it.
We only provide the stuff. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Right. Well, okay. There's a couple of guys, I think they're going to be coming out of Germany. They may be Germans in America. They've got some kind of a German association. These are going to be the two fellows that are students, and they're going to come up with the mathematics, I think, at least the control mechanism for what we can call adjustable field technology. Okay, and a field, we're going to end up having to invent a whole new language for fields. It's going to be an incredibly important economic driver for the planet for the next 100+ years, maybe hundreds of years, I don't know. And the technology is going to be based on the ability to create and maintain and move and shape and alter and even make reasonably static energetic fields, some of the energy not being electric. So we don't have words for any of this kind of stuff. Canada is going to provide at this initial outset this very key, which I think is crystalline element. or not element, a compound, natively occurring compound, an alloy probably, some kind of a metallic crystal. Now, later on in some of the real far long-term data, there's a resurgence. You guys end up setting up some kind of, let's just call it a college that's devoted to this kind of stuff. And it happens after the wave of vast migration up into Canada from the U.S. as we get into our problems down here. So it's probably 20 plus years out. But you guys have a long-term association with it, but you initially are part of this 1/3 that provides the controls. There's this going to be these two German guys that'll come up with the math, or two people with a German connection, and then there's going to be an Italian scientist that comes up with the formulas that allow the two students to do the first practical application. And then they do it using these Canadian minerals or materials when it finally gets into production. So it may not be a year, it might be 2 years before they start mining for this, but then thereafter, that region of Canada is like major boom town for hundreds of years, maybe hundreds of years. It's going to be, it's not a rare earth, it's not in the lanthide series of chemicals. It's static when they discover it. So I've got all these really good descriptions of it, but I don't have a name. We haven't named the critter yet.
Yeah. I wonder if we'll build a wall.
It'll be too late. It'll be too late by that.
You mentioned the CIA with this kind of stuff you're doing. Have you got any interest from any of these intelligence agencies?
I'm certain they're aware of it. I have to admit that way back when, in the year 2001, after the fake terrorist attack on the U.S. By the powers that be, this guy that was working with me, George Ure, convinced me to submit a request for funding to the CIA, to their venture capital arm. So in the course of full disclosure, we did do that. I went to the trial. I didn't want to. He was ragging on my ass the whole time. I'd actually tried to sell software to the CIA in the 90s. I had this software that allowed people to read 2,000 plus words per minute from computer screens, and I figured these guys sat around and read all the time. They might like this, but they weren't interested. And then second time, in the year 2001, when I wrote up the thing, we went ahead and submitted it to their venture arm, InQtel, which is their venture capital arm of the CIA, and they looked at it and sent back a little letter, and they were very polite and said it was very interesting technology, but just not anything they were interested in. And it's kind of like, yeah, sure, guys. We didn't get any money out of them, and I never dealt with them. And, and that's the way it is. But as far as I know, they don't mess with me.
Huh. Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. What about the future of the EU? How is that going to stay together or fall apart?
No, it doesn't look good. It's going to change. We're going to get new countries even. In a broad sense, what's going to happen is, I'll use some very nasty words here. It's sort of like ethnic cleansing. There's going to be a huge backlash against the powers that be flooding Europe with the Muslim culture. There's going to be a rising up and unfortunately be associated with right wing and fascism and all of this, but it's not. It's actually what I've called all along for years now, the core people's movement. And it actually is a part of what we're seeing expressed now, where everybody wants to bust up and they don't want to be part of the bigger countries. Yeah. The EU was forced on Europe at the end of World War II. From the 50s through the 60s and through the 70s, that's where the plans were put into place for this. And everybody in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in Europe just wanted to go back to their home and not be at war and strife and stuff. They didn't want to get really involved and engaged, but nonetheless, they were forced into all of this. Now we're going to see the completion of that emotional mindset of the 60s as the EU busts up. Unfortunately, it's got to go through a very near traumatic warlike condition to get there. And the data has actually shown for about 2 years that we were going to have what we called a diaspora, a movement of the peoples out of Europe towards the Mideast, and that they would be forced out. Now, this was long before the refugees started coming in mass, and so I couldn't understand it. At the time, I was interpreting it as though there was going to be some kind of perhaps a climate or a nuclear disaster or something that would push the people of Europe out. But really, looking at the interpretation now and looking at the data now, what is described... Correct. It's the backlash. It's the core people's groups that are going to stand up and say, I don't give a rat's ass about my government. I'm tired of having my female relatives raped, and we're just not going to have this anymore. And so it's already started. It's already breaking out. It's going to gain momentum over the course of this year and lead to a giant reverse wave. Lots of, terrible bad behavior, people dying, all of this kind of stuff over the rest of this 6 months. And it's going to, even more so than all of that, it's going to leave a social scar, an emotional scar on the people of Europe that will take probably generations to overcome, to work out. But it'll also transform the relationship of the people of Europe with their own ruling class. Because basically the people have to stand up, or are going to, insofar as our data describes, are going to stand up and say, I don't give a rat's ass about authorities anymore. I've got to do this.
Yeah, there really seems to be a visible backlash to the establishment right now.
It's on the edge right now. I mean, it's like something's happening every other day in France.
with Trump and the Brexit are big examples of that happening in a way where people are just
France can't be far off from doing something crazy.
Yeah.
Well, also you have to, again, place ourselves in a historical context, okay? Because then it allows us as rational individuals to examine even our own behavior within that and maybe keep ourselves safe and not get caught up in stuff. But look, we're in a period of time that this weird Russian fellow, Gurdjieff, described as the Sololuneus. And this is actually a time when the sun is pouring out energies that we don't even know how to describe. But they are affecting us. We have a new type of ultraviolet. Did you know that? We used to have ultraviolet.
No, I didn't know.
Well, we have A and B. Now we have a C. C is very energetic, and it's caused all kinds of evaporation of water out of the ocean, which has resulted in all these weird storms where, 5 years worth of rain comes down in 2 days, that kind of thing, right? And UVC is primarily responsible for that. Now it's adding in there even more intense UV. They're going to start calling UVD. And so we are all subjected to this in the Sololuneus. These are predictable periods of time. We're at the end of this 100,000-year cycle. We're going to be in this cycle until about 2041 to 2065 is when it'll wane and finally be gone, and we'll be on the other side of it, if you will, and won't be subjected to these level of energies. So my suggestion is that the vast majority of humanity at its larger, lumbering, non-really thinking sort of I'm responding to these kind of stimulus is being affected by this. And so decisions are being made that are would be bad to begin with, but they're extremely bad now that everybody's got this extra burden of all these energies, making them irritable and grouchy and putting them on edge.
When did these energies start, approximately?
In probably the first instances that I've been able to locate of the change in the UV appeared to be about 1956 or 1957. That was when it first started to show up. That was when we first started getting the language for the heating. That's when the warmest views started first appearing, and it was because of the result of things heating up because of the UVC coming in. Now, just because the extra energy is coming in from the sun doesn't mean we're going to heat up, because it's a very complex process. The UVD has been noticed since about 2006 or 7, I think.
I wonder, is there any chance that it has that negative effect of making everybody crazy? It's also could help drive because that's kind of when technology started taking off.
Exactly so. And you cannot say that they're not related.
So we're going to get lazy again. Maybe not lazy. I mean, I'm from the mindset that life was not so bad a couple thousand years ago, depending on where you were living. I'm an Indian, so the planes aren't sounding so bad some days. When my alarm goes off, I wish I was in a wigwam.
Hey, I've lived in those. I lived in those in the 50s when I was a kid in Alaska. It was a really interesting time. The American teepee is really underrated. We had them in the military. It was really strange. I was a military brat, and my dad would rent these huge teepees, probably 25-foot diameter teepees. They'd house 8 people, big fire pits, the whole thing. And you rent these guys and for a month up there, and we'd go and live in the teepees in the summer in the all over Alaska. It was just great.
That's awesome. You had mentioned Russia. What's their future look like?
pretty good. Russia's really tied into the new electrics. There's two major components of it that start off right away. That's these three guys I've described, the Italian, the two fellows which are German, but it somehow end up with a connection with an East Coast American university, and then the Canadians with the crystals or the mineral, whatever it is. And then there's the other component of it. So that's the control, what I think of as the control circuitry, the basic underlying mathematics that allows it to all work. Now, there's another component of it here that's been described in the data maybe as early as 2003. Okay, and we got some really good data sets out of a particular set there that included, the Banda Aceh quake and a lot of other stuff. And so they're still pending. They were very descriptive of these new electrics. At the time in 2003, I knew we might be 10, 15 years out. But in any event, so it described Russia and Siberia and these two individuals that are going to connect with some Indian guys, like in Hindus, and that are going to connect with somebody in South America. So there's three parties. Each of the parties is two people except for the Indian guy, and the Indian guy has got a group, a business or an organization that supports him. So he's got a lot of people with him. These are the people that take the new electrics and produce the practical advantage stuff for us. So they produce the generators, they produce the motors, they produce the field effect transformation devices that allow you to take one form of energy and turn it into another. And so in the data sets, it's describing all this really cool stuff. I just can't wait to have it because it'd make my life a lot easier. One of the things I really want to get hold of is this little device that I could it is described as being like about the size of a dinner plate, and I'd be able to throw it underneath my big F350 dually here, hit a few buttons on my control panel, and have it raise the dually up 4 or 5 feet, and then I could push it around. That kind of thing.
It's pyramid
it's a lifting field. Yeah. It's a lifting field. It's not anti-gravity per se, because you can't go levitate up 20,000 feet or anything. It has a limited effect, but no more forklifts.
Nice. And I could look it at the gym. So there's no new Cold War, because the powers that be would have you believe that if the U.S. goes into depression, the Russians are coming.
Yeah, the Russians are coming to help us out. Truly. There's some really negative things that happen here in the North America, both relative to the Terra entity, the ground underneath our feet, and our infrastructure and stuff. And we've had since 2004 or 5, something like that. And I've described it in reports way back then about a situation where we would have Russians coming and building access ports in a real hurry on the East Coast of the U.S. in order that relief supplies from all around the planet can get into the country. And it's going to be so bad they won't be able to land planes. So it's got to come by sea. So whatever it is, and we're still building in those sets. We don't have a lot of descriptors. I haven't looked at them for a long time. Probably should revisit them in the next run or two, look for new growth and so on. But I suspected it was as a result of this major earthquake that is showing for 2017. It appears to strike and may even set off Mount Rainier. It may get New Madrid fault to go. It'll have ramifications and repercussions in both Mexico and Canada. And it's very devastating for the infrastructure here, and may deprive great areas of the North America of electricity for years.
Wow. Darren, I want to get back to...
do you know what month in 2017? That was going to go down for the eclipse.
Well, that's probably where it's going to happen, as a result of that. I think it occurs slightly before that, or as a precursor, or as a part of it. Because if we don't show it, it doesn't show up before June, and the impact that data sets are describing is clearly visible in late August through September, October.
The eclipse is in August.
See, there you go. Yeah.
So I should not come?
Well, no. You got to look at it a different way.
You're going to go down south and watch the eclipse?
Well, yeah, we were going to go camping for that week to go watch the eclipse with my kids.
Yeah, and see, here's the thing, Guy. As adults, you don't know what your destiny is, and can you honestly say that you are egotistical enough to want to deprive universe and those individuals that would be affected of your heroic actions in such a case. In other words, as an adult, you're rarely ever given a chance to be a hero, to do things that are for the good of universe. Universe presents you these opportunities, and mostly we ignore them. So if you're given an opportunity to go there, and there was going to be some kind of, chaotic kind of stuff, bear in mind, earthquakes don't kill people. It's bad engineering that kill people. If you're going to be out camping, I doubt your tent's going to fall on you and kill you. So, have at it, enjoy it, and then, be prepared to provide help for people.
Oh, that's good advice.
There you go, Darren. You're finally a chance to be a hero.
I won't camp near the volcano.
There you go.
Where's the volcano?
Rainier. Rainier's
Mount Rainier.
Where's
yeah,
that?
it's about 45 miles north of me.
Okay. I don't know where you are.
Washington.
Oh, it's in Washington.
Washington.
What's the other? Is that the one? No, the one that erupted before was Helens, right? Is it by St. Helens?
Yes, indeed. It's between Seattle and St. Helens. And if Rainier were to go off the wrong way, a big chunk of South Seattle would be wiped out by the mud flow.
Wow.
What about like that Yellowstone supervolcano? You ever see any rumblings around there?
No. See, there's the thing. Yeah, you're going to see all kinds of activity there, but it's a spent force. And everybody forgets this. At the time that it exploded and sent ash around the planet and all of that, there were some hundreds of volcanoes in a giant ring around the caldera. And they blew themselves to shit the same way St. Helens did. So they're still in growing mode to grow back to those volcanoes. So they don't represent, the caldera at Yellowstone is no longer a super volcano, just as the caldera in the Indonesian area that Krakatoa was part of is no longer a super volcano. There's big areas of magma there, but there's no volcanic pressure. There's no pressurized vents the way that existed in the past. So at the time that Yellowstone blew up in the past, it was estimated that 12 volcanoes the size of Mount Rainier vaporized in the first minute. And so that entire mass, all of that stuff is simply gone. And it was sitting on top of the caldera, pressurizing it. So now the caldera just sits there and go blah, 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 So no, it's not a big threat.
Good to know.
So I want to just switch gears back to financial stuff again, because Monica's got a few questions here. I'm going to read a couple questions for you, and they're all kind of wrapped around this financial stuff, and then you can sort of just go with the flow here. So one of them is regards to Bitcoin. You're a proponent of it. I've heard you talk a lot about it here, but there's a few people in the financial arena that say they're reluctant to buy it because TPTB will use the internet kill switch. And then also, have you heard of Jeff Berwick's The Dollar? He's the dollar vigilante. His take on the Shemitah cycles or the Jubilee years. And if so, do you agree with the premise that there will be a collapse in the financial markets this fall, which you kind of already talked about a little bit? Will it start with the Deutsche Bank or Credit Suisse or Italy or the U.S.? And then the other one is about the failure of the Federal Reserve. And will we be replacing it, the world currency, of like something like the SDR, or will it go more, digital to Bitcoin, I guess?
Okay, let's work backwards here. Okay,
Sure.
So we'll say the SDR and that kind of stuff will be proffered and it'll fail. And according to the data, we're going to get offered three different things that'll be offered to pull us out of the miserable state we're in. Those three things will fail, and then we're going to go to a gold coin standard. Coincidentally, probably 2018, very coincident with the Economist magazine cover. The three things that they offer, I think, are designed to fail. The powers that be need to have us go through a certain amount of anguish before we'll accept their new system, and they're setting all that up. Now, backing our way up through. Let's leave Jeff and Dollar Vigilante out for a side. Let's go into the Bitcoin and stuff and the powers that be in the kill switch.
Yeah.
They can't do that, because the minute that the internet is killed, the powers that be lose all of their power.
Yeah.
Their power is entirely based on digital capital moving around the planet. If you can't move digital capital, then they're locked into national systems. They're no longer globalists. And the minute that the kill switch goes in and ATMs and all this sort of stuff doesn't work, then the serfs rebel, because there's no longer anything in the way of food stamps or any of this. And so you've got mass chaos instantly. And yes, it would technically deprive people of the ability to trade Bitcoin across the internet, but that's all it would do. It doesn't even kill Bitcoin. I can actually do Bitcoin math on a piece of paper with a pencil if I wanted. And I could put Bitcoin onto a piece of paper in terms of the private keys and resurrect it any other place on the planet, given an access to a computer. And Bitcoin can be traded from phone to phone and so on. So it is not limited to the internet having to run. And the powers that be, I can swear to you at this point, will never, ever, ever dare disconnect the internet, because not only is it their
wealth.
Not only is it their wealth, it's also their eyes and ears and their control mechanism. And without that, they're going to freak out. They wouldn't know what would be happening, and they don't have the manpower to control us without that. It's estimated, the Chinese, by the way, Chinese government, central authorities know that in order to take over and control a populace, they've got to have 20% Han Chinese in that group. Everybody thinks of China as being filled with what we think of as a typical Asian person with, slightly yellowish skin, et cetera, et cetera. But there's over 140 racial groups in China. And Han Chinese are a small portion of that. And when they go to a new region and the central authorities take over one of these regions that used to be formerly self-governing, they always move in at least 20% of their population. Now, as a control mechanism, as they're a vehicle for eyes, ears, and boots on the ground, so to speak, there is no such thing for the powers that be. They don't have enough people to put 20% of to occupy 20% of the U.S. And also, that's why there will never be an effective invasion or a war with an intent to invade the U.S., because it would take such huge manpower to do so, and even the Chinese could not accomplish it. It was estimated that the amount of the Chinese military that would be necessary to occupy the United States would totally drain their resources in China, and they don't even have. There's an interesting thing about armies. Let's divert for a second here real quick, because It goes to economics. Some armies are like the United States. We've got maybe 88 managers to one guy in the field who pushes a button on a drone, but we've got the most incredible logistics outfit in those 88 managers. China maybe has 2.5 million people with their finger on a gun, but they don't have the 88 managers that can get their bullets to them across an ocean. So there's a different way of expressing force with these kind of things. So I'm not worried about invasion of the U.S. or any of that kind of stuff. Now, getting back to Bitcoin and the cycles and the powers that be and Jeff, here's the deal. Bitcoin is a people's issued money. We're going to go digital. The decision has been made that we're not going to go into Mad Max apocalypse world. We may have huge economic crashes, but we're actually going to go into more like Blade Runner sci-fi world. And so that decision by the powers that be and the people that are behind them means that we can, if you will, safely pursue Bitcoin in our own issues with digital currencies. Now, Bitcoin is really cool because it's the people that issue it. Even if it was an NSA invention, it's now been taken over by the Chinese populace because they bought them all. And so it's easily disruptive to the powers that be. They don't like it. They're trying to get in on it. It's not going to work for them, but it does have real legs. So if you're afraid of buying a Bitcoin or a portion of it now, and because of the fear that the powers that be are going to take it away from you, then I would say, and you were, for instance, going to buy gold or silver, then I would say two things here. If the powers that be were to shut off the internet, your gold and silver is only worth what you can trade it to your neighbor for.
Yeah.
You can't sell it. So by all means, go in full bore, big key, big energy, and buy some Bitcoin. Because if the internet goes, we're into a Mad Max world, and I don't think they've chosen that one. They've chosen the other world. And so you can buy the Bitcoin now, and it will be something that you can pass on intergenerationally, insofar as what the data is showing. That the Bitcoin is going to go to it had an association with silver emotionally, and it's moving into an association with gold, and then it's going to go beyond that into something new. And so the data is actually showing that maybe the far distant future, maybe say 2028, 2029, countries are using Bitcoin to do intercountry settlement on debts.
Wow. I'm going to put my money into cigarettes, whiskey, and guns, because that stuff never loses value. It goes up. The shittier times you get, the more that shit's worth.
Well, there is that, but it's not very life-affirming.
No. And it's tough to turn down unless you just turn down your racket. You hit some hired hands for security.
So how will the new storms or the change in the weather patterns play into that whole transition into the let's say the Blade Runner type scenario, like the damage to the communication systems, and Monica was asking about this as well, like the winds and the straight line winds, which are cross-linked to the popcorn storms, which seems like we're getting these right now in Calgary and all over Western Canada, actually. And it seems that this would indicate some power outages, so that could affect could affect Bitcoin as well. And it seems like that might be why the cards will quit working. Do you have any thoughts about that?
The cards and so on, I think, is a function of the credit freeze and J.P. Morgan, because they're the ones that it basically would put all of our eggs in a single basket with these a couple of mega banks that control that system. So that's a separate issue. That's in an entirely different set.
Okay.
Now, the regional power outages are going to float all over North America. The good news is for us is that the weather changes and so on are indeed going to hit us all, but it's kind of a situation of it makes us tougher and better at repairing them.
Right.
And see, right at the moment, curiously, if we had one of those CMEs that took out the North American power grid, there is no manufacturer of transformers in North America anymore.
Huh.
And so we would be 35 years replacing the transformers we have now from external Chinese, Philippine, Indonesian sources.
Yeah.
Okay,
Just from one Carrington event.
Correct.
Yeah.
However, and it would take that long to replace them. However, that's the kind of thinking that you usually see with academics, where they proffer this idea as, Carrington event will deprive us from electricity for 35 years. And I would beg to differ. No, it won't, because humans are not static, dead things.
Yeah.
We're inventive. We're going to come up, or somebody's going to say, well, damn, the power grid's down. I'm going to pop off my free energy idea and see if it don't work. And, that kind of thing will occur. People will cobble together, make a way, make it happen, and evolution will work, and the best ideas in the circumstances will emerge. And probably 12 years later, we've got something that is better than the old grid, newer, more robust, chaos-driven, et cetera, et cetera.
And until then, we've got the technology already of being able to harness the wind, the water. We've got diesel generators on all our big infrastructure.
And hey, guess what? I've been, it's not going to betray a confidence because I won't go into the details, but we've been seeing this thing, for instance, that we've recently called the slope. Okay, it's a giant, huge project that's going to occur over these next few years. It's going to be related to the Atlantic side of the Irish coast. Ireland's going to get a big boost out of it economically, and at an even better, even more meaningful at a cultural level, a self-esteem level, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but this thing, we now think we're getting some of the details on it, and we think it's an energy-producing device. It's made by the Chinese. It's had a 20-year history of use in China. It's a static device in the sense that there's no moving parts, relatively. I can't get into the details, but basically it involves like a giant heat pump, if you will, from the deep ocean temperatures to the surface temperatures to generate electricity. And it really does look like the data sets were able to predict a number of months out, maybe even a year now, that this project was going to occur. And I've actually been contacted by individuals that I think are participating in the early stages of it, because, for instance, we had data showing that Chinese were going to fund it and so on and so on. But here's the interesting part about this. This is just one of these new electric technologies that are going to be around the planet that, in essence, are free energy without any of the 0 point, lanthanum pressed gold dilithium crystal kind of stuff, right? It's just a simple technology that sits there and produces electricity like the wind and the solar. Only this is a very interesting one because of its ease of use and the fact that once it's made, it's virtually maintenance free.
Yeah, I like that.
Interesting. So what?
Yeah, so
go ahead.
I would say, so Canada gets involved in this too, because the slope as a project, Canada in the Newfoundland, Nova Scotia region does a lot of the logistics support for the Irish. And so there's going to be a sort of a maritime boom there that will also bring the boon of this technology over to the Baffin Bay area, and it'll start being put there. But the data on that is probably 15 years out.
Yeah, yeah. So what about the storms and stuff then, and the different weather? Like, do you think that some of that is Is that all natural, or is some of that man-made or intentional effects from man-made? And I don't mean man-made as in carbon pollution. I mean man-made as in weather modification.
Yeah, I'm certain they're out there screwing around with that. I mean, I know that for an absolute fact because my dad was in the military at a high enough level that he had to study it in order to progress through certain courses that he was taking. So even in that would have been 67. Even in 67, the information was available that the U.S. military was doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, they're doing that. There's some interesting things going on. The jet stream has recently crossed the equator. This is a very potentially troubling, but I'm just assuming it's all going to work out because of the self-correcting nature of these spheres that we live on.
Mm-hmm.
The Earth has got a goal of trying to reach homeostasis, to spread heat evenly around the surface. And that's what gives us all life, because it continues to try and do this. It'll never achieve it, and it would be horrific for us if it did achieve it. But the mere fact that it's trying to achieve it is what creates all of our weather. And so these popcorn storms and everything that were forecast by the data that we're now seeing appear all over the planet, mostly in the northern hemisphere, though, are a direct result of the shift in all of these wind patterns. And I think these are all driven by, at the very large macro level, by an upcoming expansion event, which is probably this earthquake in the 2017. The fact that the eclipse is involved temporally, I can't say it's involved causally, because we've had the data suggest that it is actually an expansion event that we're going to undergo here. Now, as a result of that, as a result of the sphere under our feet changing, the dynamics of the heat distribution system must also change. I don't expect this as permanent. I expect that we have to live through, as I say, probably or about 40 more years of this before it settles down a bit. And it will be a different world then. Truly, it will be. It'll have different currents. The currents may cross the equator in different spots. We may have different temperature distributions. We may have glaciers on the equator, for all I know. There will be new glaciers throughout Europe. There's the suggestion that Europe will, to a certain extent, be depopulated by the glaciers. So all different kinds of things are going to go along relative to the weather for humanity, but we get through it. I mean, it's actually good for us to encounter this at this time.
And wow. And that's, how far out is that?
Well, we're living in it now.
Right.
I mean, the popcorn storms and everything, it's all going to develop over these next few years. The data sets were suggesting that millions, as in tens of millions of people, will be shifted due to weather in unpredictable ways. So the unpredictable ways component of that is very key, because the sets in there are not talking about creeping shoreline disappearing on low-lying islands. They're talking about sudden rivers drying up and the 5 nuclear plants that used to be getting cooling water from them going into a supercritical meltdown. That kind of thing. See, so those forms of weather climate disruption are going to cause tens of millions of people to move over these next 15 or 20 years.
How are the mainstream media going to handle this? Are they're going to continue propagating that this is man-made global warming causing it? Is that going to fall apart, do you think, during this whole shift, or how long is that going to last?
I would presume so. I don't spend much time thinking about that. So,
right, yeah.
or their pronouncements or stuff. So I don't watch them. I just don't imbibe it at all. So and to a certain extent, I haven't considered that. I could cogitate on it, but it never occupied much thought.
Right, and the data sets don't really talk about that as well, right?
Well, they do, because they're frequently referring to the propaganda press and everything, but I'm looking for, I was never really looking for anything that was a gauge of their effectiveness, if you will. I was much more concerned with something that might prop up that would affect them. So, for instance, we had a number of years back, we had a bunch of sets about reporters being confronted on the street for their lies and all of this kind of thing, all of which matured and showed up and manifested. And so I would see that kind of stuff about the mainstream press, but in terms of the press as a big aggregate and its ineffectiveness, never even looked at the data that way.
Right.
How's the future of Grimerica look?
Well, let me tell you, you don't want to have me go look at that, because it always tends to concentrate the negative.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And it was truly horrific. I mean, the times I've done private runs for personal people We've seen nothing but the terrible parts of life, the death of a spouse, this kind of thing. So it was just never good, and I just don't do those now. You could not pay me enough money to do that shit.
Yeah, that's no fun. It's more fun to predict the... I like that stuff too. What about, was it Monica who sent in the alien cruise ship question?
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by that myself. This was just like really cool. It was out of the blue. Usually we see these sets forming in an organic kind of a way, sort of like you get a couple of drops and it forms a little puddle, makes a slight depression in the ground, a few more drops, and the puddle grows, that kind of thing, right? And pretty soon you've got a little area, a dip off the corner of your house where all the water collects. Well, this cruise ship thing was entirely different from that. It was as though you turned around, walked out there one day, and there was that huge puddle. And, without any of the buildup. And so it was quite fascinating. We've had sets like that appear in the past where they just came in like all full blown, so to speak, complete and correct in computer programming terms. And when they do show up like that, they've always been prescient. They've always shown up. They've always shown up in the time frame forecast. They've always started off in long-term data and worked their way down to immediacy data, so we're able to track them coming on in. This is how I was able to get the Banda Aceh earthquake, for instance, right? That kind of thing. And the cruise ship Costa Concordia, because it shows up in long-term data and works its way down. You sort of track it and it fills in and so on. Here we've got these sets where they're suggesting that we're going to get a flyby. Some kind of a mechanized, clearly a spaceship. It'll be slow enough that a big chunk of humanity will see it because the spaceship is coming down to look at us. So it'll come close enough that it'll be within our atmosphere and slow enough that it'll be looking at us because it's going to take the individuals that are in it on a cruise, and we're the things they're looking at. We're the local attraction, if you will, the roadside attraction. And so as the roadside attraction, we can sit there and we're going to be able to stare at it, and that's what's going to affect disclosure. So it isn't going to be the new electrics or any of that. And I think we are originally and organically inventing our own new electrics and our own free energy. True, we've got the seed of the solid state stuff from the, transistors and diodes and all of that. But nonetheless, I think we're actually beyond what they were capable of, and we're going to do our own stuff here, right? But the cruise ship stuff is going to be really cool because it'll bust open the whole disclosure thing completely.
Nice.
And I think it's around 2018. It's in the far long-term data. Last time I looked, I haven't seen any of it appear in the short-term data at all. So I'll certainly be tracking that and writing about it as it matures. But it's going to be really cool because apparently we'll be able to see them looking at us, and lots of people are going to freak out.
Nice.
And so how does the data present an alien cruise ship? How does that show up?
It's just the language. It's literally, you have to understand, I don't get pictures. I get hexadecimal integers. And then I take all these hexadecimal integers and I go and look them up in this big file that is the lexicon. And it has all these words. And so there were the officially denied and the officially unknown sets that are at the top of this. This is a fuzzy set theory basis. So as you read down through it, it would be like encountering the words of cruise, and then cruise ship, and then cruise ship participants, and then it would go on down and cruise ship inhabitants. So a participant would be the crew, presumably, and an inhabitant would be the guest or the tourist. And then it goes on and so on, and then you realize, oh, hey, this is all tied over to Space Alien, or to the Space Goat Farts, where all this entire set you've been reading about the cruise thing is supporting space aliens, officially denied technology, officially denied beings, and so on and so on and so on. So you merge these sets. So the cruise ship stuff is described a cruise ship as though you were sitting on a beach somewhere in Mexico and a cruise ship came up and took a couple of hours to drive by you, and all the people on the side of the cruise ship were looking and taking photos of you sitting on the beach. Very much that kind of language. And then you see that the whole thing is wrapped in the Space Goat Farts entity, space aliens cruising by the Earth language. Make sense?
Yeah, I like it.
So, but we should probably not keep you for too much longer, Cliff. It's just been fascinating. But is there stuff that you're working on in the future? What do you got going on now that before we start wrapping it up?
Well, I'm at this point, I'm in the process of doing the tuning of the lexicon, where I take those emotional quantifiers and I go back and I say, okay, this was the forecast. I said it would appear 9 days out. It actually showed up 14 days out. I need to make this adjustment in this particular value that led me to think it was 9 days and make it more towards the 14. So that's the tuning process I've got to go through, and then we'll do another report for August and beyond. But insofar as the big crash and the economics and all of that Monica was asking about, all that stuff goes down this summer. Okay, so no, I don't have a big crash this fall. And getting back to the Jeff Berwick. Okay, no, I like Jeff. He's a very interesting personality. He's really cool. I wish he would stop smoking. In fact, I could help him with that if he ever wanted to contact me. I smoked for 17 years and quit cold turkey and have been off the tobacco for 30 plus years. So I actually do have a history of that, and I can tell him how to do it. But in any event, though, he's a cool guy. But here's something that I was alluding to earlier. Humans are natively pattern matchers. Okay, we hunt for patterns in nature because it helps us survive. We recognize a tree from a rock because of the patterns presented to us. So we have to be very careful when we see patterns in abstractions, because our minds may be placing them there for us. And then there's the other part of this. We have a situation that I'll have to discuss in a non-politically correct fashion, okay? And here's our situation. The vast majority, or a controlling majority of our financial system is in the hands of a religious racial group that we call Jewish. Yeah. The Jewish people have a history of these pattern matching mnemonics, where they get a mental image and they live and work on these patterns. So because our financial system is controlled by a Jewish dominant personality type that is seeking these patterns and lives by these patterns, they are going to express it whether it was organically there or not. So Jeff is correct in seeing the pattern, but to ascribe that pattern to a deity as opposed to the self-fulfilling prophecy kind of stuff of that particular dominant group is, in my estimation, a flawed conclusion.
Wow, that's interesting.
Makes sense.
So nonetheless, the pattern is there and he's correct, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to start happening any day. Or it's happening. It's happening now.
It's happening now. It's happening now. I think actually the turkey actually popped this off, okay? So I've been looking for some stuff that was going to lead us to the point where we would have a really chaotic economic summer where a lot of the mechanisms just simply don't function. And they don't function in a big public way. And the turkey emotional stuff that happened here on Friday was fulfilling some of the language for a temporal marker I was looking for. So I feel somewhat comfortable in saying we're going to get to this extremely chaotic fiscal financial thing, especially in the dollar empire on the planet, and we'll be well into it by this time in August.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's also the official the funding. The funders of, the Black Lives Matter type thing are calling this a summer of chaos as well. So I'm sure that's not going to help that at all. I mean, it'll probably just wrap itself around the whole financial thing as well. And Steve, a buddy of mine, had a couple questions for you as well. And you kind of addressed it, the Ireland thing already, that technology off the West Coast. But you also had mentioned an ancient Irish language that would be found to be much older than previously thought. Are those events related in any way?
Other than being geographically connected, no. There's no causal relationship within the data sets. It may be that the discovery of the Irish language stuff is a big self-esteem booster and participates in the SLOPE project because everybody's feeling good about themselves, but that's really the only thing I could suggest relative to the data. It does appear that the linguistic discovery, the big tunnel, the cave, or whatever it is they find all this stuff in, will occur ever so slightly ahead of the public or creeping into public consciousness of the SLOPE project, because it looks like that particular project is going to have a bunch of stuff go on and be manifesting as they tentatively work it all out and so on, and then be announced. Very much in a Chinese fashion where they study, plan, do all release, the prep work, and then release. Exactly. Yeah. And we also do have significant details suggesting Chinese funding and participation.
With this new technology stuff you're talking about, is there any evidence of of it from ancient us finding out from ancient cultures. Like we had this guy on the podcast. It's going to be released soon about Egyptians being electric Egyptians and stuff like that. And then, we've got all these megalithic sites built around the world. Have you ever seen anything about us really finding out more secrets from our advanced ancient cultures as opposed to just developing this stuff
organically? Yeah. We have all kinds of connections for that within the Space Ghost Farts entity. Usually I don't talk about it because it's really it's a backward-looking kind of a thing.
Yeah,
see?
Right. Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things like that in the data, and usually it's just sort of like push it out of the way to get at the stuff I'm after.
Right.
But it is quite correct. There's and this is probably why we have this association from Siberia to India relative to the new electrics and the practical application of the field technology. See, here's the thing. All of the new electrics, we're looking at a fundamental, if you will, scientific shift, okay?
Yeah.
It would be as though we're going to go from everybody having gas lights to LEDs. No incandescent, none of the other stuff in between. It's just going to be a huge jump into this absolutely new technology. Hang on just a second here, okay, guys?
Yeah, sure.
We're almost done. Yeah. I've got to take off, guys. So I'll finish this thought up and leave here. But anyway, when we do shift into this new technology stuff, we'll find that we're replicating a lot of the old stuff. So whether we rediscover it or whether we piggyback, I can't say, but it will be matched.
Right. That's what I was thinking too. Yeah.
Yeah. And sorry, guys, I have to go rather abruptly.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks,
Cliff. We'll send you the notes and all that, and we'll link to everything in your show notes, your website, and your Twitter and all that. And thanks for coming on.
Okay, and you let me know when you post, and I'll talk about it on Twitter and such.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Cliff.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
That was a chat with Clif High. That was a great one. Wow.
Yeah.
I knew absolutely nothing about the guy coming in.
Well, good. Well, you're great, man. You were a big help this time.
You say that from time to time. It's
because
we
you had
talk
some
about logical
great questions
things.
and stuff. Oh my God, really? Eh? A lot of people would disagree that this is logical.
I'm not saying.
No, I know.
More truthful. I'm saying logical things. I have a mind that works very specifically.
Yeah.
So some of the airy-fairy stuff is harder for me.
People are listening now going, oh, as if this was an airy-fairy. You're talking about psychic, subconscious psychic impressions being pulled out of the internet.
I can quantify it, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Especially with the time implications and everything.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
It's one of those things, maybe it's just one of those things that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like that.
Yeah.
I can pick up what he's putting down.
Yeah. It's pretty cool that he knew Neil Adams' work as well.
Sometimes I have trouble.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they tie in hand, and I've said publicly that Neil Adams is one of the most paradigm-shifting episodes.
Yeah, yeah.
And he ties right in with all that. So, I mean, I'm slowly putting together my vision of reality. And when I get it together, I'll let you guys know.
Would you let me know? Good.
Maybe I'll write a book.
Yeah, he gets into a lot about China and the Bitcoin as well, and how that actually is going to happen. Like his reports are quite in depth.
We got to have him on once a year.
Yeah, because I listened to one of his reports. I downloaded it and put it into my VoiceStream app, and it took it was 2 hours long. So his monthly reports are comprehensive, 2 hours, and it's really I don't know. It's really interesting how. Especially this time, this summer. Oh.
I don't know if I want to be a hero or not, though.
What?
I don't know if I want to go down to be a hero. Maybe just wait for the next one.
You would step it up at the time.
Probably.
Yeah, you would step it up.
Yeah, it's not about me.
Yeah, I know, but you wouldn't do it to be a hero. You do it because it's the right thing to do.
No, I mean, it's not about me or my safety that I'd be concerned about. It'd be my family. Putting my kids in harm's way if I think there's going to be a crazy earthquake and social unrest in the country with the most guns.
Yeah, but he was thinking it more on the chance to see that eclipse during that time, I think, right?
Yeah,
that's what your fate is. The universe has got it all lined up for you. You've already planned that trip.
For years.
Yeah.
One episode, just, no. Then nothing will happen.
Yeah, no, it was really.
I'm gonna go.
It's really interesting. I'm just fascinated by the financial stuff. I kind of meant to ask him more about I've been reading about this new currency from the BRICS and all that. I mean, maybe that is the SDR. I haven't got too deep into it, but people say that the US dollar is going to collapse and there's going to be this whole shift over to a new currency. And
guess we'll see what happens. I'm going to go to see the eclipse with the truck and camper that I won at the Stampede tomorrow.
Oh, you're going to win that at the Stampede?
I'm going to throw $20 in and see what happens. I pick one every year and throw $20 in.
Nice.
And just hope. I don't know. It'd be tough not to sell fucking things worth $200,000.
I know.
You know, sell it for 150. So that's pretty good. You get a pretty good leg up with 150 grand.
Yeah.
And then spend 20 grand on a nice old, you know, you could still get a nice little motorhome for 20 grand. That's probably what I do. Anyway, everyone manifest my winning.
Trade it in for Bitcoin.
There we go.
That's what we should do. Get the Bitcoin. Yeah. As Grimerica, we should invest in Bitcoin. People should tip us.
Oh, I thought
Bitcoin.
you meant invest as Grimerica. We should invest in lottery tickets at the Stampede.
No, Bitcoin.
No. Yeah, if I win. So everyone send me some karma.
He says there's like millions of people starting to use Bitcoin in China.
This
whole wave of Chinese going on to Bitcoin and the digital currencies. Like
we've got a couple. Not Bitcoins, but bits of Bitcoins.
Couple percentage.
I think we got like $30 or $40 worth of Bitcoin building up in there.
Yeah, thanks, because that came from a listener.
Yeah, Catch Frame Productions.
Nice.
That's Jeff.
That's how your mind works. That's Jeff.
Yeah.
That's Jeff, the winner of the last art contest?
No.
Oh, different Jeff?
Video Jeff.
Oh. The guy that's going to help me piece together the video for Dr.
The episode that's coming out in like 4 days. All right, guys. Support the show. Help us stay ad-free and help us continue.
Yeah.
Shaping my reality. And Grimerica.ca/support. Bunch of different options there. Sign up for a monthly. Buy a t-shirt. Spam Graham. Tell your friends about this motherfucker. Sign up for the newsletter, Grimerica.ca/news.
Send your art to Nap.
Send your art to Nap. Nap@Grimerica.com. Graham@Grimerica.com. And I think that's it.
Maybe review us on iTunes.
Oh, shit. Yeah, review us on iTunes.
That would be
5-star.
Yeah, that's always good to get.
There's a link in the show notes right now. Just go to the show notes on your device. Click on Graham's link. 5-star.
Bingo bango.
Bingo bango. Boom shakalaka. Thanks for listening, guys.
Oh, hey, one shout out. Any nights of the No Agenda Round Table, get in contact with me. We'll have you on the podcast. We want to do a couple night episodes. Little round table with the Knights of the No Agenda.
There you have it.
I've been meaning to say that.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. See you next week.
Ballistic linguistics got the characteristics to rip this with the quickness, leave you gripless. With the slickness, we got the swift kicks, definitive linguistics. Fathom this, I'll wind up a statistic. Ballistic linguistics got the characteristics to rip this with the quickness, leave you gripless. With the slickness, we got the swift kicks, definitive linguistics. Fathom this, I'll wind up a statistic. A lyrical battle can scatter the brains of the tattered weak. Have you ever been sawed in half verbally? Make you wanna grow spiritually. Pray that I don't ask you to take your lips to your ass, face to the glass. Anytime you wanna clash, got more guns than mash. My mouth is like a ski mask, camouflage on my ill past, leave you in a full body cash. Visions of the future, you girl me in the Kama Sutra. An assassin of my music passion, keep the blunts passing. All you know, goal MCs won't be lasting. Straight to the top, but always watching the ground. I will never drop, you know I like how that sounds. My rhyme style shakes the ground, makes you drown, bring you down, make your head spin around. When I'm battling, I'm never a clown. I get the job done, and then I chill and place when in the sun. Business first, shoot out lyrical bursts, always quenching your thirst for words to make my enemies' ears hurt. Make your girls flirt, make your sweaters look like shirts, and supervise the weak MCs, son. Watch them close, treat them like a hot gun. I leave you celibate like a nun, leave you broken like fighting Jet Li the one. I miss rappers like Tupac, Biggie, and Big Pun, but that's our reality on the third rock from the ballistic linguistics got the characteristics to rip this with the quickness, leave you gripless. With the slickness, we got the swift kicks, definitive linguistics. Fathom this, I'll wind up a statistic. Ballistic linguistics got the characteristics to rip this with the quickness, leave you gripless. With the slickness, we got the swift kicks, definitive linguistics. Fathom this, I'll wind up a statistic. My mind's never level and bevel until I'm severing, ingesting liquid fear for adrenaline can never
the brain. The definition of my vision, wishing there was more to us than simply blood, flesh, and beast on the E1. As we redefine the lines, intricate by design, we're inscribing a sign upon the eyes of the blind. Here through the deaf, my life escaping faster than my last breath. Approaching death with a grin, buried deep within the sin that you bring. Reconfiguring perception of the modern primitive, expanding the unlimited, uninhibited with our eminence. Use our laws as evidence, following the path, let's travel for direction. Random interjections, infect dissection, proceeding with an attitude correction. Life is nothing more than a lesson. Check your watch, it's about time for a reality check. Absorbing this ambassador of metaphors, opening the closed doors, listen to the ignored. Impossible to understand the purpose of this verse without first an open mind. Reconstruction of the broken, speaking true names for my only best friend. Extend my forum in the direction of my life, send disguising the truth within the form of my skin. Never assume anything.
Ballistic linguistics got the characteristics to rip this with the quickness, leave you gripless. With the slickness, we got the swift kicks, definitive linguistics. Fathom this, will wind up a statistic. Ballistic linguistics got the characteristics to rip this with the quickness, leave you gripless. With the slickness, we got the swift kicks, definitive linguistics. Fathom this, will wind up a statistic. I've been issue the big shooter, turn sideways and screw you. I promise you, I turn your face from skin to goo. Have your brain black and blue. The AKMC straight denying you. Speaker breaking beats. When the AK gets cold, we turn up the heat. Verbally murder you in your sleep and burn the sheets. No evidence, leaving the residence with no hesitance. Help the barbed wire fence, getting high before social events. Screw paying the rent, I'm buying the building. Got your whole crew yielding and yelping. Come on, Violent J, why aren't you helping? MC's running scared, you must have your legs nared. Why don't you put on a dress, develop breath so I can break the heart in your chest? You need to brush your teeth with crest. Don't come near my nest, I fill you with rocks so you can't digest. I infest a little pest to try to get the best of the realest MC from AK to Cincinnati. Cook you like a beef patty, start thinking rationally. You should go back to hustling, cause as long as we're busting, these Anchorage MCs will be the only ones got the labels lusting. Explaining my point by sporadically cussing. This is not a discussion, we're blowing up like spontaneous combustion. Ballistic linguistics got the characteristics to rip this with the quickness, leave you gripless. With the slickness, we got the swift kicks, definitive linguistics. Fathom this, will wind up a statistic. Ballistic linguistics got the characteristics to rip this with the quickness, leave you gripless. With the slickness, we got the swift kicks, definitive linguistics. Fathom this, will wind up a statistic.
You don't say ham, you say spam.